Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very big welcome to all the attendees this afternoon to this webinar today entitled Positioning South Africa for the Green Economy, Execution Strategies. The webinar is hosted by EE Business Intelligence, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and Isondo Precious Metals. My name is Chris Yelland. I'm the Managing Director at EE Business Intelligence, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies and moderator, signed in from Johannesburg. A very big welcome to Mr. Parks Tau, member of the Executive Council responsible for economic development in the Provincial Government of Gauteng. And also may I welcome, or shall I say, give my apologies for the Honourable Deputy Minister Fikile Mjola. He is the Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa. Unfortunately, he has taken ill, and a big thanks to Tammy Klaassen, who is the Acting Chief Director for Special Economic Zones and Industrial Parks in South Africa, who will be standing in for the Deputy Minister and delivering the presentation on his behalf. Welcome also to the fantastic lineup of presenters this afternoon, all of whom will be introduced to you in due course. Of course, a big welcome to you, the attendees today, for your interest and participation. Please do note that this webinar is being recorded, and a link to view the webinar on demand, as well as links to download all the presentations today, will be made available by email to all those who registered to attend this webinar, as well as to the general public and to the media. While the presentation is in progress, please do send us your questions on the Q&A text facility. Panelists and their support teams will be responding in this text chat facility to some of the questions during the course of the webinar. We also have set aside about half an hour after the presentations for our expert presenters to answer some of the major questions. We will not be able to respond to all the questions in the text Q&A facility during the Q&A session itself, but we will try and answer some of the major themes that arise through these questions. Today, we have over 1,000 delegates registered to attend this webinar on the execution strategies for positioning South Africa for the green economy, to hear what the Gauteng MEC Parks Tau and Deputy Minister Fikile Mjola and Isondo and the presenters have to say on this subject. So there's clearly massive interest in the important topic, which is now taking center stage on the national agenda at the Department of Science and Technology and Innovation, at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, at the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, in the Presidency of the Republic of South Africa, and in the private sector, with a focus on planning, finance, investment and execution. The green hydrogen economy offers South Africa a significant advantage in utilizing its natural resources to help re-industrialise its economy, underpinned by various policies and initiatives, many of which are spearheaded by the DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. So this webinar will discuss some real developments on the ground taking place right now in South Africa that take advantage of these nascent opportunities presented by the green hydrogen sector. The webinar today will also be used to publicly announce a most important project being driven by the DTIC and Isondo to beneficiate South Africa's platinum group metals in a world-class facility in Gauteng. You will hear all about this today. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from the leaders in the public and private sectors, from South Africa and abroad, that are assembled here today, on their vision on the role of green hydrogen in South Africa and its economy. May I express a big thanks to Gauteng MEC Parks Tau and to Deputy Minister Fikile Mjola and to Tammy Klaassen, who's standing in for the Deputy Minister, for being here today and for honouring us with your insights. To our co-hosts, the DTIC and Isondo Precious Metals, we are truly grateful for your support and the work that you have done and continue to do to promote and highlight the green hydrogen opportunities arising in South Africa. May I also take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the sponsors today. Nedbank CIB, the bank that puts sustainability at its heart. to Cotima Coating Machinery of Germany, to IBC Advanced Technologies in the USA, and to thedtic in the UK for your most valued sponsorships and your financial and other support for this webinar. So I'm going to just introduce the Deputy Minister. Mr. Fikile Majola is currently serving as the Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, the DTIC, in the Republic of South Africa, following his appointment on the 29th of May 2019. He is a member of the 6th Parliament as representative of the African National Congress. He also served as a member of the 5th Parliament, and during this period, he served as the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Energy until 2019. He actively participated in many structures of the liberation movement during apartheid, such as the Vaal Youth Congress, the South African Youth Congress, the Southern Transvaal Youth Congress, and the United Democratic Front in the Vaal after the formation of the UDF in 1983. So I'm going to now ask Tammy Klaasen to do the honors and to deliver the presentation on behalf of the Deputy Minister. Tammy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Mr. Chris Yeland. And hopefully the MEC will be joining us in absentia currently. MEC Pakstau, Prof. Katsuhuku Hiroshi, and Mr. Vinay Somera, Mr. Kevin Fothergill, Mr. Maurice Brandt, Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra, Dr. Khotso Mukele, esteemed guests. Good afternoon to you all. In the past few days, we have seen quite a disturbing trend in our democratic dispensation. Some parts of the country experience unprecedented levels of public violence, destruction of property, and looting. These were opportunistic acts of criminality coordinated and driven by some groups instigating chaos to provide a perfect platform for looting and theft. The situation has left many South Africans counting the cost of their livelihoods, property, and businesses. Despite the state of anxiety and panic that has been created, many South Africans have come together to join government in condemning these acts of violence and loss of life. Several communities have been affected by these acts of criminality and have come together to help restore the situation. While we condemn looting and destruction of property and businesses, we also acknowledge the interdependent socio-economic phenomena of inequality, poverty, and unemployment that continue to pose a huge challenge as the number of unemployed people increase in the past few years. The coronavirus pandemic has presented one of the most daunting periods of humanity and our nation since the attainment of democracy. The global pandemic has hit hard on our economy as the GDP is estimated to have contracted by 7% in 2020. This situation resulted in job losses and these challenges in these challenging times and have caused hardships to our people. However, government has demonstrated its capacity to respond immediately to this crisis. We remain hopeful despite the gloomy contracting global economic outlook. To confront these devastating impact of COVID-19 on an already weak South African economy, like in any other country, government and the social partners develop what we call economic reconstruction and recovery plan to reignite the economy. The Special Economic Zones program is expected to play a very significant role in support the implementation of the country's economic reconstruction and recovery plan through reigniting manufacturing-led industrialization in an accelerated manner. The SEZ program is purposely structured to stimulate local and foreign direct investment and increase exports. In countries such as China, special economic zones have been the main driver for growth and development. The World Bank has reported that special economic zones generate 22% of China's GDP, 45% of total national foreign direct investment, and also 60% of exports. In South Africa, the SEZ program was initiated in 2014 and has continued to attract significant numbers and value of investment in various regions. These rapid growth of SEZ, such as the one in Kucha, in the Port Elizabeth, now called Gqeberha, East London, Dube Trade Port, and the recently launched Tshwane Automotive in Gauteng, continue to demonstrate the significant role played by the Special Economic Zones program in the country. The value of operational investments has increased from 17.713 billion in the Q4 of 2019-20 financial year to about 20.29 billion rands in the Q4 of 2020-21 financial year, which recorded a positive increase of about 2.579 billion rands. The headcount number of operational investments have increased from 129 to 145 companies in the same quarter financial year of 2020-2021. The rand value of operational investment is expected to increase by an estimated 11.8 billion rands by this year of 2021-2022. The funding is subject to the completion, of course, of investment projects that are currently underway. Having said all of this, the South African government has identified the green hydrogen economy as one of its primary focus areas, underpinned by various policies and initiatives, some of which are led by our department. This industry in South Africa has the potential to create new skilled jobs, create platinum group metal beneficiation opportunities, develop new export potential, reposition our automotive manufacturing sector for the electric vehicle age. Furthermore, the industry will promote the greening of our economy whilst reducing our carbon emission and achieve economic transformation objectives through our Black Industrialist program. To this end, the OR Tambo SEZ has been tasked to contribute to the country's industrialization, to the country's industrial and manufacturing agenda, economic growth, job creation through solid partnership with critical stakeholders. The SEZ supports the growth of beneficiation of precious metals and mineral sectors with a focus on light, high-margin, export-oriented manufacturing of South Africa's precious and semi-precious metals. The support of the green hydrogen sector will increase the competitiveness of our manufacturing sector. The start of the construction of the process of the Isondo Precious Metal facility shows a significant milestone in the beneficiation of our precious metals. As Minister Patel previously said, the hydrogen economy could provide us with a just transition with the potential to decarbonize various industry value chains and provide security of energy supply. As government, we are pleased that Isondo Precious Metals is launching the construction of the first state-of-the-art facility, custom designed to host manufacturing processes of platinum group metals, components for the fuel cells, and the electrolyser industries that underpin the emerging green hydrogen industry. Our department, the DTIC, has to date approved about 55 million rands toward feasibility and execution of the IPM manufacturing capability. Facilitation of an overseas technical partner was also made possible through the DTIC's National Industrial Participation Program. The total investment to date of IPM into this project is envisaged to be around 103 million rands rather. It is pleasing to see that Isondo Precious Metal has been creating the blueprint for how South Africa can position in the hydrogen economy since 2015 so that the country can accrue the immense benefits offered by its new global industry. As national government, we congratulate the Gauteng province, the OR Tambo SEZ, and the Isondo Precious Metal for reaching this significant milestone. We definitely look forward to South Africa taking a competitive place in being a beneficiator of its own precious metals into required products for fuel cells and electrolysers for global green hydrogen sector. Numerous pilot projects examining various applications for hydrogen use and feasibility studies for its transportation are currently underway. Not far from the OR Tambo SEZ in Joburg, a proposed spring fuel cell hub linked to the Gauteng Industrial Development Zone is currently undergoing an environmental impact assessment. The intention is that this initiative will build on current partnerships and skills capacity, leveraging the existing support infrastructure for fuel cells manufacturing and deployment. The Springs location offers access to PGMs from surrounding refineries, existing hydrogen pipeline, metal and engineering supplies, as well as established transport and logistics services. Throughout the world, governments are developing hydrogen strategies to establish leading positions in the emerging markets. As of the beginning of this year, about 18 countries accounting for over 70% of global gross domestic products have completed the development of hydrogen strategies or are in the process of doing so. The hydrogen economy is a potential game changer for the whole world. South Africa is well positioned to capitalize on this rapidly developing global hydrogen economy. Government is committed to working with all stakeholders to advance the development and creating of an enabling environment for the development of this new industry as part of the re-industrialization strategy to become an exporter of cost-effective green energy, green hydrogen energy. Together with our partners, we will collaborate to support the development of hydrogen economy and the fuel cell manufacturing capabilities in South Africa. Government has already taken steps to support the development of green hydrogen economy. We have provided support to start of the production of fuel cells by a global firm that set up a factory in one of the SEZs, the Durban Trade Port, which is in KwaZulu-Natal province. As the DTIC, working together with our sister department, we continue to do the following: support the commercialization of the green hydrogen through strategic localization, reindustrialization, and transformation. Secondly, explore policies and regulation which progressively promote the decarbonization of South Africa's hard-to-abate sectors. To support a focused effort of the opportunities in green hydrogen, Minister Patel has instructed our entity, the DTIC, the Industrial Development Corporation, to lead the commercialization of green hydrogen efforts, working with the Department of Science and Innovation. The IDC was critical in the development of Sasol's well-beating coal-to-oil technologies and the more recent emergence of South Africa's renewable energy independent producer program with an exposure of about 14 billion rands in renewable energy. The IDC will focus on coordinating the efforts in developing hydrogen economy and identifying investment opportunities to assist with the immediate implementation of pilot projects. It is imperative that we promote public-private sector linkages that will be critical to the development of the entire green hydrogen value chain. Furthermore, the IDC has been given the mandate to actively form partnerships with private sector in funding opportunities across their green hydrogen value chain. These collaborative efforts are expected to accelerate the development of a sustainable and inclusive local green hydrogen economy. Today, we stand on the brink of a new development in our effort to bring cheaper, more accessible energy solution to the world in the form of hydrogen. South Africa's access to platinum resource places the country at an advantage position for developing the green hydrogen value chain and become a key supplier of hydrogen market across the globe. In addition, South Africa is well endowed with key ingredients critical for the hydrogen economy, such as the PGM metals, and are used in the electrolysers needed to produce green hydrogen as a fuel and to fuel the hydrogen cells electric vehicles. South Africa has more than 80% of the world's reserves and is home to the largest platinum mining companies in the world. The start of South Africa's involvement in the hydrogen economy dates back to 2008, when the Hydrogen South Africa HISA was officially launched by the Department of Science and Innovation. The vision of HISA was to use local resources and existing knowledge to create knowledge and human resource capacity, enabling the development of high-value commercial activities in hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. The aim is to create sustainable local manufacturing sector for hydrogen production and PGM-based fuel cells by beneficiating South African PGM minerals through appropriate mechanisms that can support a local and global market. The DTIC has supported fuel cells demonstration and component production, including the establishment of fuel cells manufacturing at the Dubai Trade Port SEZ. The approximately 150 investment has created a manufacturing facility with an initial capacity of 1,500 fuel cells per annum. The company, in collaboration with the DTIC, has started the process of localization with initial local suppliers, which include printed circuit board assemblies, wire harnesses, pressure tanks, sheet metals, manifolds, and vacuum-formed ducts identified for inclusion in the supply chain. As our country, together with the rest of the world, reconstruct economies amid the ongoing effects of coronavirus, I am confident that the renewable technologies will be instrumental. We are working to rebuild our economy together so that more jobs can be created, so that more businesses can be supported, so that we can put food on the table and send our children to school and support our families. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, for South Africa to succeed, we need to work together with our friends throughout the world with whom we share the common aspirations to defeat poverty and underdevelopment, not only in South Africa, but the African continent. These trying times facing our country need resilience, courage, and hope. Therefore, it is of great significance to reiterate the words of our head of state, His Excellency President Ramaphosa says, "We are building up, not shutting down. We will remain focused on protecting health and saving lives. We will work as never before to ensure everyone is vaccinated. We will rebuild our economy and create jobs. We will forever remain that as difficult as times may be, we shall overcome." I thank you.
I'll thank you very much, Tommy Klaassen, for delivering that speech on behalf of the acting minister. The acting minister has taken ill, and we're very grateful to Tommy for standing in for the minister. And of course, Tommy is the acting chief director for special economic zones and industrial parks in South Africa. And thank you for those uplifting words at the end, that we need to be resolute, we need to overcome our problems, and we need to overcome. Simple as that. So thank you very much indeed to Tommy and to the Deputy Minister for those words of encouragement. So it's my great pleasure now to introduce to you our first presenter, and that is Professor Katsu Hiroshi. Professor Hiroshi is the founder, CEO, and chief consultant at High Wealth. He's also an advisory board member at Isondo Precious Metals. And during a distinguished career at the Toyota Motor Corporation since 1981, he worked on the world's first commercial hybrid vehicle, the Toyota Prius. And he then worked on the Toyota Mirai, the world's most successful fuel cell electric passenger vehicle. He also led Toyota's fuel cell and hydrogen strategy. He was involved in the initiation and was a fundamental architect of the Hydrogen Council, a global CEO-led initiative that fosters the clean energy transition. He is the WPI visiting professor at the International Institute for Carbon Neutral Energy Research at Kyushu University, and he's an independent consultant for several global companies, including the Toyota Motor Corporation. So it's with great pleasure that I now call upon Professor Hiroshi to deliver his presentation and share his slides. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much for your introduction. So I'm hated to say that actually what I have done is all in my young as a great engineer. So I was lucky to be involved for those projects. So anyway, I'm the very great honor to talk here. So I'm going to share as previous says, people talking about hydrogen society. But of course, the objective of the hydrogen society is actually making the happier and sustainable society. So I'm talking about the role of potential, especially for South Africa, and while talking about what's going on in the world. So I'm lucky to be involved in those the project. But so many people talking about hydrogen electricity. So people debate whether hydrogen or electricity, but that's very simple. Among the engineers, scientists, we need both to go to the sustainable future. Only the issue is whether that can be applicable for small but the passenger car or not. That is still uncertain. But other than that, heavy-duty application cannot be electrified, or the electrified airplane is possible to fly, but you cannot carry 300, 400 people over the 10 hours flight. So it's very simple. The hydrogen and the electricity, we need both. So this is the current situation. So Japan led the world's hydrogen strategy in 2017. Previously, there are many R&D, but then there are several countries for the industry, because after the COVID, people finding a way to stimulate the economy, and they found hydrogen is a very great way to stimulate the economy and accelerating the climate change. Climate change then the third and for you the von der Leyen, I'm very happy that what I said in the Hydrogen Council report, the hydrogen will play a very important role in the low-carbon from the future. And that is not only an expense for the environment, it will be creating a huge amount of the business and jobs. So I'm happy that I've been the underwriter of Mrs. von der Leyen. So, and then the latest Hydrogen Council report shows the hydrogen will be getting cheaper, and because of those acceleration, it is that getting cheaper. It can be quicker to reduce the cost. And even 2030, the blue or green hydrogen will be competitive with fossil grade hydrogen. On on Wednesday, while I talking to South Africa, in the parallelly, there's a big announcement from Saudi Arabian government. So they set the hydrogen strategy for such a big fossil empire. they are going to go to the hydrogen use for the future. Then there are many countries following to set the hydrogen strategy. That's very important because of the hydrogen will play very important role for the future, not only environment, but also the economy. So this is a some of the comparison of Japan and South Africa. Both countries does not have oil or gas resources. But Japan has nothing resources like say your precious metal. But so I envy you that you have a very good renewable surroundings, wind and solar. We don't have. So that's why Japan is going to import a lot of hydrogen from all over the world. Future will be very simple because of the renewable will be a main energy source and use optimum use of fossil fuel. In order to make this, hydrogen electricity need to be coupling. So this is 7 role of hydrogen. First, the enhance more renewable implementation into the society, and also the hydrogen will make the renewable tradable and also the storable, because of the we need even energy in the night and in some very unwindy, calm days. So hydrogen will be used for the transportation, industrial energy, and heating, and also the feedstock. And this will be even the current. The hydrogen play very important role in energy vector to produce fertilizer and refine the oil. So currently 8 exajoule of the hydrogen is being used. 1 exajoule is almost identical to operate the whole world one day. So it will be 10 times more in 2050. And so that is amazing. And that also play a very important to reduce the carbon dioxide, 6 gigaton of the reduction. And more important, $2.5 trillion annual sales of the hydrogen related, and creates 30 million jobs. That's also very important. And this attracts many governments to go to the hydrogen strategy. So this is gets the latest report from Hydrogen Council earlier this year, 228 projects ongoing all over the world. But the latest update on the left is July 2021. This 2028 goes to 359 and over $500 billion of projects. On the right, these are planning, but already nearly $80 billion of investment is already going to be implemented. So important thing is hydrogen investment is ongoing now, not in the future. So this is in Germany. Germany is also going to the society go to the net zero. That's the very simple strategy, generating more electricity than the electricity needs. Then converting the electricity into the hydrogen, and then implement the chemicals, transport, and gas strategy. And also, I would like to explain a little bit of the very, very strong criticism about hydrogen. Because when you store the electrons in the battery, you lose 5 or 10% for the charge and 5 or 10% for the recharge. So still 80% of the electron remains. But when you store the energy in hydrogen, you lose 20 or 30% for electrolyzer. And then when you back to the electricity, you lose another 40, 50%. That's so compared with the remaining energy, the hydrogen is full. So that's the people said that is the full way to in terms of efficiency. But if you imagine the milk will be say, produced lot in summer, probably. So then, if from the efficient way of the ingredient, it is better to drink directly. But people change into the cheese, and cheese makes a lot of margin for the market. So the cheese will be used, eaten in winter, or time shift value, and also cheese can be more valuable than just milk. And also the cheese can competitively price with competitors like salami or even caviar. That makes a more margin. So that is similar to the electrons. Electron is getting cheaper and cheaper because of you don't need the extra fuel for generating the electricity from wind or solar. So you need some money for the capex, but the incremental cost is nothing. So the electron is getting cheaper and cheaper. But electron cannot be stored as a form of electrons. You need to either put into the chemical way like a battery or products like a molecular like a hydrogen. So hydrogen storage or usage is something like a milk cheese conversion. So, and also the long-term storage, the battery cannot be stored. So only the hydrogen or some kind of pump-up hydro. That is highly dependent on the geographical situation. So I'd like to say is that hydrogen conversion can be lower in efficiency, but market or economical value can be increased by conversion. So it's not a stupid way to convert or store the energy as a hydrogen. And also the very, very important thing is electricity is very strictly demands the balance sheet of the demand and consumption. If it collapses, that will make a blackout. So with a renewable power generation, electricity is not a very, very flexible solution. But if you convert into the hydrogen ones, so 24-inch, 60 centimeters pipeline can be transport of the 5 gigawatt energy flow. And also if that is 1,000 kilometers, that is 70 gigawatt hour of the energy storage. Japan has huge pump-up hydro, but that is around 70 gigawatt hour. We spent hundreds of billions of money to build that pump-up hydro, but that can be equally stored by 1,000 kilometers of the pipeline. So hydrogen can be a more flexible backbone for the future low-carbon society. And I'm talking about a little bit more South Africa. This is the current situation of the renewable in the world. The greener means huge potential for the renewable. So South Africa is well positioned. And the demand is Europe, Japan, or Southeast Asia. So the positioning of those areas is all very important. So I see the positioning of the South Africa is well positioned to transport to either to Europe or Japan or Southeast. So I envy you that even this energy transition, Japan cannot produce the renewable by ourselves. We need to buy. Only the good thing is energy conversion, energy transition, Japan can negotiate with many other countries. Currently, we import a lot of the oil from Saudi Arabia and UAE, but there are no other place to provide the proper oil. But for renewable, we have a huge flexible place to import. So I think that South Africa is also the one of the candidates. And Japan is developing a technology to import such kind of the energy, like this is the first liquid hydrogen carrier ship. So it's launched 2 years ago and now ready to operate. The first operation will be in later this year to go to Australia to Japan. And also Europe is also investing huge money to develop the electrolyzer and the renewable hydrogen as a recovery plan. As the result of those acceleration, the 2050, there's huge demand for the hydrogen. That can be partially blue, partially green, but it depends on how the cheap those energy can be. But anyway, definitely the huge demand will grow. So I'm talking a little bit about the transport. For transport, people talking about the passenger vehicle, whether that can be battery electric or hydrogen. But the reality is this is the energy usage of those categories. So relatively long distance passenger car or bus or truck or even aviation consume more energy than small passenger car. So number is huge in the small passenger car, but energy consumption or carbon dioxide emission will be small. So this means this bigger vehicle is more important for the energy transition. And also in the future, society has a huge electricity and hydrogen available everywhere. And automotive product is always chosen by the customer. That is ease of use, cost of operation, and purpose. So the customer will not choose the technology by just the cheap electricity or something like that. So the battery or hydrogen is only a part of many conditions the customer will choose. Then this is the latest hydrogen car, the Mirai 2, the second. That is rated 645 kilometers of range. But recently, some drivers show the evidence of that this car can be driven more than 1,000 kilometers. That was shown in Paris, and also that was also shown in Japan condition. 1,040 kilometers per 3 minutes charging. Of course, using a lot of platinum. So big difference for the customer is that convenience. But for society, the very important thing is how much the infrastructure costs. Because if you have 100 of the battery electric vehicle in the town, you don't need to enhance the infrastructure. You can charge at home or anywhere. But if you have millions of cars on the road, you need to invest a lot of money for charging. And this will be the cumulative investment for the infrastructure. But at the same time, for fuel cell, you can just modify your gas station to the hydrogen. Then the convenience is identical to those, and the investment is relatively small. So this is a comparison of the TCO. TCO is the total cost of ownership. And with the battery EV comparison in the dot curve in the middle, without the very small battery electric vehicles, the passenger car, truck, these are much cheaper for hydrogen than battery EV in early as 2025. And also the latest cost comparison green hydrogen is also accelerating by those the investment. So on the left side, bus, truck, and trucks, these will be already cheaper in 2030 with hydrogen than the other fossil competitors. And also there's some difference between the renewable rich area or renewable average area. I understand South Africa is within the very cheap on the bottom line. That is already close to the power generation parity. And also there are many product is now launching. So a little bit delay from the battery electric vehicle, but fuel cell bus is everywhere in Europe now, and the number is growing, and trucks also, and train, even the airplane is now being planned. And also the battery EV does not need the precious metal like platinum or rhodium, but the fuel cell needs the platinum. So if the whole vehicle fleet goes to the battery EV, there's a huge problem for South Africa. But energy transition will be showing a little bit different picture, because energy transition needs the energy conversion. Energy conversion needs an efficient way to use the precious metal as a catalyst, even for electrolyzer or say, synthesis or chemical process need a precious metal catalyst. So that besides the battery EV, the energy transition still needs a lot of precious metal. So again, that future will be a lot more the greener with the load cap of the hydrogen and electricity. I personally do not like a hydrogen society, because currently we are living in an electric society, but we don't call electric society. The future will be very simple. That is a happy, sustainable society. So why Japan bet for hydrogen is very early stage. Japan seeking energy security, but latest target is the carbon neutral. So Japan is emitting 1 gigaton of the carbon dioxide. Only 1/3 is electricity, say power generation. The 2/3 are going to the industry and home. So converting into the carbon neutral is very, very hard. That's why Japan has been hesitating to announce the carbon neutral until October last year. So then this is a we are struggling to build the concrete idea to reduce the carbon dioxide in Japan. But definitely the hydrogen and hydrogen ammonia will play very important role for both industry and power generation. This is a picture that's shown by the government. Uniqueness of Japan is, since Japan is still very large in the GDP, we need energy from outside. So we still rely on energy import from outside, and those will be at least low carbon. And then the local collaboration is very, very important. We talk about the decarbonization in the country level, but reality is we need to balance the consumption and production of the hydrogen. So Toyota Sasso's recent announcement is very, very important. And hydrogen plays more in fundamental backbone of the sustainable society. So I like this word. End of Stone Age was not due to the lack of stone. The technical innovation and new idea changed the society. And I believe that the South Africa has a huge future, and we cannot change the past. Even it is very difficult to change the present, but we can change the future. And energy challenge, climate challenge is not easy, but actually this cherry blossom planted my grandfather 70 years ago, just after the war. It was a very tough time for Japan, but our grandfather planted those cherry blossom with the imagination of grandchildren and grandchildren smile. So I'd like to say, let's challenge the very difficult energy transition and design the future, but that will be a fun for the engineers, the people. So let's enjoy the energy challenge. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor, for those words, for filling us in about where hydrogen fits into the picture in the energy transition, and your very inspiring challenge to us to look forward and not backwards. There is an exciting challenge ahead as we transition towards a greener and cleaner future, a low carbon future. And I think you've given us some inspiration and some words of wisdom coming here from Professor Katsu Hirose in Japan. It's been an honor to have you speaking to us today, and thank you very much indeed for your words. I'm going to introduce you to our next two speakers who are doing a joint presentation. So in the first instance, we have Mr. Vinay Somira, and he is the founder and CEO of Isondo Precious Metals. He's had 30 years experience in the platinum and associated industries and spent 25 years with Impala Platinum Group of companies, working across many functional areas and finally serving as the Implats Group Executive for Market Development and Strategy. So whilst he was at Implats, he helped create and build Impala Refining Services, a subsidiary of Implats, from a zero base into a 1 million ounce platinum refiner with a multi-billion rand turnover over a 10-year period. He's a strong proponent of beneficiation of metals in South Africa, and he left Implats in 2013 and founded Isondo Precious Metals to help create precious metals beneficiation industry in the country. Vinay has a BSc degree in maths and chemistry, as well as a BCom honours degree, and he holds an executive MBA from the University of Cape Town Graduate School of Business. And he's going to, as I say, present jointly with Mr. Kevin Fothergill. If I may introduce him, Kevin Fothergill has 35 years experience in the chemicals, hydrogen and fuel cells industry in a range of technical, commercial and business management roles. He was instrumental in establishing Johnson Matthey Fuel Cells into a leading global supplier of hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. In 2016, Kevin co-founded the UK Hydrogen Hub, of which he is currently the chairperson, and it's an organization dedicated to supporting businesses and local authorities in the adoption of hydrogen as a low-carbon energy carrier in transport and stationary applications. Over the last 15 years, Kevin has been involved in numerous committees and industry groups attempting to facilitate the introduction of hydrogen and fuel cell technologies into the market, and he's widely regarded as an authority in this field. He's currently the CEO of Enacumen, as well as serving as a technical consultant to Isondo Precious Metals. Kevin holds a BSc honours degree in chemistry and an MBA. So I think we're going to hear a very exciting presentation to tell us what's happening on the ground in South Africa right now. So without further ado, can I now hand over to Vinay Somira, the CEO of Isondo. Over to you, Vinay.
Thank you, Chris. And good afternoon to all the participants. Isondo Precious Metals, we started this work, like we said, in 2013. Really focused on the green hydrogen economy from 2016 onwards. where we first qualified for a grant, feasibility study grant from the DTI. So when you're talking green hydrogen, intuitively, we know that with our wind and sun resource, which is amongst the best in the world, which when combined with a PGM resource base, there is absolutely no reason why South Africa should not be and must be a leader in the green hydrogen space. We know that in South Africa, there are many pressing drivers for change that actually demands the execution on the vision of using this opportunity to create a new growth industry that benefits all the country and importantly, creates employment. I think the economic tragedy that is playing out on our streets currently and our devastating youth unemployment levels means that this nascent green hydrogen opportunity must be exploited to its full extent. And I must emphasize that, this is the best opportunity we have to add a significant layer of skill job with very high multiplier effects. And we have to, as a country, get this right. The question really is, how do we translate all these natural resources and this opportunity into real executable projects, creating economic value? And this is the question that IPM began to answer in 2016, when we started a feasibility study of creating a manufacturing value chain for PGM-based components that underpin the green hydrogen industry. And this has been a long process, as some critics have pointed out. But realistically, creating a detailed blueprint for a full manufacturing value chain is a monumental task, and we bear testament to that. It requires the attention to detail to ensure sustainability of both products as well as processes and country and company. I think the learnings from the initial stages of the feasibility study, we initially started with membrane electrode assemblies, or MEA as the acronym. The initial learnings indicated that beyond MEA manufacture, a truly sustainable business plan would require PGM catalyst, PGM chemicals, and importantly, PGM recycling capability. Hence, we had to expand our focus, and this took almost a full 2 years to finalize the feasibility study across the full value chain. The biggest challenge thereafter, and I think the most time-consuming, was raising the requisite investor funds to execute. And this was at a time when economies were struggling, South Africa and in particular the PGM companies were struggling. Green hydrogen was still far off on the horizon, not like today. And a fair degree of skepticism existed as to whether a South African startup could actually deliver on this vision. And that's being very, very frank. The DTIC support was invaluable at this stage to help finish the feasibility study and complete the fundraising. And I must take my hats out to the teams at the DTI. We only closed our first round of fundraising at the beginning of 2020, and then COVID-19 hit, obviously. And so another year was lost. So 5 years later, here we are at the start of the execution process, but it's a very important start for IPM, the DTIC, and indeed the country itself. So as a new South African entrant, in the field of PGM technology, trying to create a new beneficiation-based manufacturing industry in South Africa, there are unfortunately a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to establish credibility both locally and globally. The first fundamental requirement is having a strong and globally recognizable leadership component. At Isondo, we have been privileged in being able to rely on guidance from a very strong advisory board that includes Dr. Kotso Mokele, who has chaired many corporates listed on the JSE, including Implats and several other companies, as well as being the ex-chancellor of the University of the Free State. You've heard Hirose-san, Professor Katsuyoki Hirose, one of the most prominent names in the hydrogen and fuel cell industries. He led the development of the Toyota Prius and Mirai. We have Dr. Ferdinand Panik, who led the early stage fuel cell development work at Daimler in Germany. And importantly, Dr. Mukulu Mate, who from the CSIR, who heads the Energy Materials Group at the CSIR. Furthermore, to put this together also requires a very strong technical team of local and international experts. Our COO is Dr. Saqib Khan. Saqib has been with me from the commencement of this journey, and we have built this business case up through long days and nights, weekends, up to its current execution stage. He has a PhD in fuel cells, 20-year history in developing fuel cell projects in South Africa and across the world. Kevin, who's co-presenting with me today, is deeply experienced with all aspects of fuel cell and electrolyzer technology, working at JM for much of his career, together with Dr. Peter Gray, an expert in all technical aspects of fuel cell and electrolyzer MEAs and catalysts, with degrees in chemistry as well as a PhD in chemical engineering. Leading our PGM development team, a PGM recycling team, is Tim Spandil, a former refinery manager at Implats. And the team is rounded off by an expert in PGM chemistry in Derek Mudley, who has a long history in PGM development work within several of the South African PGM refineries. The second fundamental leg of creating a new business in an emerging industry like the green hydrogen sector, with already vested and well-known international players, is having best-in-class technology, processes, and equipment that sets you apart. Here as well, I believe that we have passed this milestone with flying colors and can boast best-in-class technology deployment in all processing segments. We're starting with the CCM, catalyst-coated membrane, and MEA manufacturing process for fuel cells and electrolyzers. We established the processes and equipment required, as well as the flexibility needed to keep pace with market evolutions, and chose German-based supplier Cotima as our primary equipment supplier, based on the engineering expertise and well-recognized reputation as a leader in the field of fuel cell and electrolyzer CCM and MEA. However, in analyzing the cost and makeup of the MEA, it was clear that the cost of the catalyst and the assembly costs were the two significant cost drivers. Our focus then shifted to process and plant development capable of manufacturing PGM catalyst to the required technical specifications. Together, a team of catalyst experts and the team at the thedtic in the UK, we have developed a catalyst manufacturing process that gives us significant flexibility to manufacture different catalyst types, as well as the capability to expand the batch sizes as market volumes grow. These are both wet and dry catalyst processes, and both these MEA and catalyst production processes now position IPM initially to manufacture MEA and catalyst products under license as a Tier 1 or Tier 2 producer, but also crucially to develop our own products over time, as well as helping develop and scale up R&D from South African universities up to the industrial scale. So inherent in the production of MEA and catalyst is the generation of process waste. And this is really very high value waste with the PGM component. In this case, the ability to recycle these high value waste streams quickly and efficiently become critical if you want to operate within the lower end of the cost spectrum as a sustainable integrated production process. To this end, the ability to recover the PGM content from process waste as PGM salts and subsequently convert this into PGM chemicals becomes a significant competitive advantage. And we know that South Africa has produced some of the top PGM development chemists and engineers, and IPM has managed to put together a very strong team to work on this PGM recycling capability. We have consequently developed a very interesting and what we think is one of the most modern processes of this type, which after being tested and optimized and when installed will start with the shredding and dissolution of passivated MEAs from stacks to separate the ionomer from the PGM content. The PGM stream then is combined with catalyst waste and other recycled materials, and this will either be ashed or smelted as the case may be, if smelted, atomized before feeding into a full molecular recognition technology-based refining process, which is very exciting for us. This is important for producing the required PGM salts. We believe that the setup of the recycling capability from the start is a prime strategic directive. And using MRT technology, we will be able to set up recovery processes for critical metals like iridium with an extremely short pipeline. And this becomes crucial, especially considering the importance of metals like iridium in the PEM electrolysis for the production of green hydrogen, and the fact that only about 270,000 ounces are produced in South Africa per annum. So recycling will be a key company differentiator, and this is why IPM is focused on accelerating this strategic imperative. The MRT technology from IBC, we believe, is one of the cleanest and greenest PGM recycling technologies on the market, It allows for significant reduction in processing pipelines, which is critical. It can be tailored to meet our process needs, and also allows for a very high degree of process automation, which fits in very, very well with our existing suite of Isondo technologies being implemented. I think further, from a PGM sourcing perspective, this will also allow us, importantly, to recycle other sources of catalyst, including autocatalysts, which will help get the company into a sustainable financial position much faster. We will be starting a second round of funding shortly to procure the funds for the PGM recycling phase, which we hope to be able to launch then also next year once our building is ready. Now, this now positions IPM with a full product suite for that underpin the green hydrogen industry. And once the facility is installed and the equipment commissioned, the recycling, and noting that the recycling and refining kit is also still subject to finalization and a fundraising program, we believe we'll be able to produce this full suite of products and position South Africa well within this space. The full product suite, if I just quickly describe it, it can start with the catalyst-coated membrane, which is coated with a PGM ink. From there, you produce a 5 or 7 layer membrane electrode assembly. This goes into a fuel cell and electrolyzer stack. We're not producing the stack in the first phase of business. We'll do it in the later stages. Our process waste, and as well as end-of-life MEA and other catalysts, then goes into a PGM recycling stream, which we hope will be installed by next year. We then produce the PGM salts from there. This is then reconverted back into the PGM chemicals. The PGM chemical is then used to feed into a state-of-the-art catalyst manufacturing process. And from there, you combine the catalyst with various solvents to produce the PGM ink, which is then used to coat the CCM, and the process starts again. All this will be done within the specialized facility that we have developed and will be launching today. So with this strategic and hard-won evolution, we believe that IPM is well on its way to becoming a PGM, proudly South African-based PGM technology company. And we're using leaders in the field like Johnson Matthey and BASF as the benchmark and guiding lights in this regard. I think our capability to produce all the key PGM-based products that underpin the hydrogen sector is key from a position of South Africa. The ability to learn from upstream and downstream processes is incredibly valuable in optimizing the process across all production sectors, as well as costs of production. And as a company, we are very, very proud of this achievement. And of everything we have achieved, I think this, I believe, is the best contribution we can make as a company underpinning, for South Africa. It underpins all the work we have done to date, and in my mind is one of the most satisfying aspects of the project execution strategy. And this is the recruitment and training of our graduate interns from our South African universities. This first intake, all HDSA currently, and 3/4 of them women, are being trained in all aspects of MEA and PGM catalyst development and manufacturing. They're also being trained and are being exposed to PGM recycling development and platinum PGM refining, and also being exposed to business development, helping build a company like IPM and get involved from the start is very, very valuable business exposure. And they are being trained by our team of local and international experts, and having exposure to these experts is a wonderful learning opportunity for these graduates. And we believe that the exposure they're getting via this interaction really amounts to some of the highest quality preparation for working within this emerging industry. This is vital, we believe, for the ongoing development of capability to underpin industrial development in South Africa. And we are looking forward to expanding this intern recruitment and training program as more funds become available via our Fund 2 fundraising program. And once our facility has been constructed, there will be great opportunities to expand our training program for interns with practical on-site training, under some of the best experts in the field. If there is a possibility to consolidate this with other companies as well as South African governments and universities, then this could be an interesting pathway in preparing our young graduates and technicians for the future in the green hydrogen industry. So overarching all of this is the the design of the facility designed to accommodate all these varying processing work streams. And this is starting construction now. This is a 3-story building. What you're seeing right now is the basement. On the ground floor, we're going to host our MEA manufacturing plant. We have several clean rooms that's being developed on the ground floor with very, very stringent air requirements. And all our MEA, CCM products will be produced in that environment. The second floor is set aside for wet and dry catalyst development. We have both a dry section, a dry lab, as well as a double volume wet lab, where we'll be hosting our catalyst production as well as our PGM recycling kit. Above that, above the double volume, we have offices for staff, and then on the second floor, we would then have the executive offices, open plan offices, as well as 2 very big labs, one for fuel cell recycling, fuel cell development work, and the other one for fuel cell R&D and as well as quality control. So I think now let's take you for a walk through the building. We prepared a nice 3D render that shows how the building will look like, and we've got several videos to show you what this is all about. We start with a video of the zone.
Globalization is taking root across the world at a rapid pace, and South Africa has moved to ensure that its citizens benefit from this by adopting special economic zones to facilitate trade and investment and create much-needed employment opportunities. Currently under construction at the OR Tambo International Airport Precinct, the OR Tambo Special Economic Zone is one of such investment initiatives in South Africa. Operated by the Gauteng Industrial Development Zone Company, a subsidiary of the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, the OR Tambo Special Economic Zone is beginning construction on a 7.5 hectare piece of land and focuses primarily on high-value, low-mass commodities. This presents a wealth of opportunities in multiple sectors, such as perishables. Several investors have already partnered with the OR Tambo Special Economic Zone with an investment focus on agro-processing, tertiary metals processing, mineral beneficiation, pharmaceuticals and electronics.
We'll now take you through a short video on the clearing work starting on the site, as well as the initial excavation work on our site. So like I said, the site clearing and construction work, the excavation work started this week. We prepared a 3D render of the building in terms of how it will look like when it's done. And this is very, very exciting for us right now. This is the reception area of the building. Get into the main area of the building. Going down, you will see the basement area. We're now in the loading dock, heading towards the first of the clean rooms. Pause there. So to the left, you'll see doors that heads into an airlock that heads into the balance of the other clean rooms. And these, a bit about the clean rooms. These are ISO class 7 clean rooms. They will be built by Sanjo Construction, a company with a 20-year track record in building of processing facilities and clean rooms for the pharmaceutical, food, and industrial segments. The clean rooms are made out of pharmaceutical panels with an antibacterial surface, are operated at certain pressures with the designated rates for air renewal to comply with classification. Specialized self-closing doors fitted with seals to avoid air leaks and contamination maintain the air pressure cascades while goods are moved around and staff are moving around as well. The HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems have been done by Seamus Rennie and is a high-end solution uniquely customized to this very, very high-tech building and its applications. And to this end, the system automatically controls both temperature and humidity within specific parameters. It performs different levels of air filtration needed to meet specified air classes and support the varying manufacturing processes. It balances supply, return and extraction airflows to achieve the required air cascades, thus ensuring the specific room relative pressures are maintained. In the clean room, we are hosting all our equipment, MEA manufacturing equipment from Cotima. It's a very large clean room, very high tech. And you can see this is some of the highest tech equipment available in the market currently. From here, we move into the next clean room. This is where the laminating machine from Cotima is located. And at this stage, I want to go to a video from Cotima.
Guten Tag. Hello, my name is Thomas Kolbusch and I'm the Vice President and Director of Marketing, Sales and Technology. Welcome to Cotima Coating Machinery in Dormagen. Cotima is a market leader for coating, printing and laminating equipment for fuel cells and electrolysers. It's our pleasure today to support the start of the new building of the Isondo Precious Metals IPM company. We are not only proud to have delivered equipment for the coating of a core product of a fuel cell stack, the CCM, but we are also proud to support Isondo in its efforts to bring fuel cell technology to South Africa. At Cotima, we work in high-tech markets, and here the focus is on custom-made but standardized equipment platform strategies. Take a look at a few of these technology platforms being used in fuel cell, battery, and solar technologies. Thank you for your attention and Glück auf, as we say here in our area in Germany, for Isondo to build up the fuel cell technology in South Africa. And next time we look forward to meeting you in your facility. Tschüss and goodbye.
Thank you, Thomas. If I might just introduce Thomas Kolbusch from Cotima. Thomas, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Thomas, do you want to tell us a bit about the equipment that we are showing in this segment?
Yes, of course. It's my pleasure to give an overview on the coating equipment of Cotima Coating Machinery from Germany here live now. The equipment is used by Isondo for fuel cell development in South Africa. Coating of the catalyst is one of the most important steps in the fuel cell stack. It has to be very precise, even distributed, and without any defects. All of these points and the cost of the plating catalyst make 85% of the cost of a fuel cell stack. With the click and coat equipment you see on the left side of the room, Isondo has the newest state-of-art technology in pilot coating equipment with different coating systems and drying capacity. Cotima has done over 50 units for fuel cell production the last 20 years and developed several equipment platforms to reach a high standard from lab to fab. All the click and coat elements can be easily exchanged and additional elements can be added. On the other side of the room, you see a sheet-to-sheet system, the Easy Coater, which is used from Isondo to develop new catalyst inks and test before going on the bigger unit. After the Easy Coater, you see one of Cotima's Smart Coater, a roll-to-roll unit, where on smaller scale, new methods, new technologies for fuel cells can be developed. To summarize, this center is one of the most sophisticated ones globally, and we think it will be and is already a big success story in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, can we carry on? Can I ask Kevin to join me now with the next part of the segment? We now move up to the first floor, which is the catalyst manufacturing side of the business. This is the dry labs with the hydrogen reduction oven. Kevin, are you online?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Can you take us through the process?
Yes. So one of the most important things that we need to be able to do to produce high quality catalysts and to have a lot of control over the properties of the catalyst is to be able to give them heat treatment and heat treatments in special atmospheres. And this equipment here is specifically designed to do exactly that. The size of this equipment is such that it can handle production quantities of the catalyst, and it reflects the state of the art in this kind of heat treatment.
We also are working with a South African company called Hot Platinum to put in more equipment in the space, specifically a ashing and small smelting unit, as well as atomization unit to help with our recycling process. Can we move on, please? So these are the other labs in the dry area, and we're now heading into the wet chemical area, and this is where we're hosting our PGM catalyst production rigs, as well as our PGM recycling and refining technology that we spoke about earlier. This is a very large area, double volume, 6 meter high ceilings, so we can fit in quite a bit of kit into here. Can we move on, Kevin? Okay. I'm not sure if Ray has joined us. We wanted Kevin, over to you.
So yes, Ray, if you're there, if I could just introduce you. So Ray Carter is the director and general manager of the thedtic Process Systems in the UK. And Ray, we'll just take a few moments just to give you some background and understanding of the thedtic company and their capabilities.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin and Vinay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ray Carter. I am the director and general manager of the thedtic Process Systems Limited, based in Stafford in the United Kingdom. We're approximately 150 miles northwest of London. As part of my role, and maybe of interest, is we have a sister company in South Africa based in Johannesburg, and I'm also a director of the thedtic South Africa. We're very grateful to Isondo and Acumen for this opportunity to be here this afternoon and introduce the thedtic as a supplier in this, what we class as a very prestigious development. The thedtic are global leaders in the manufacture and supply of safe, innovative design and quality glass-lined products, filter dryer products, powder handling, borosilicate glass, and it's there that we turn our product into bespoke process systems, such as the catalyst reactors you see there for Isondo. We are a privately owned company, and we're approaching our 340th anniversary. We're proud to be one of the oldest privately owned manufacturing and engineering companies in the world today. Our headquarters and main manufacturing centres are located in the Strasbourg and the close by Alsace region of France, where they were originally conceived and registered in 1684. And contrary to popular opinion, I was not there at that time. The thedtic Group continues today to be run by the thedtic family, who take a very active role in its operation, its direction, and its future development. And they now have an increased turnover from its early beginnings to over 160 million euros. The global thedtic organization works closely with its customers to provide innovative and bespoke solutions to customer process requirements. via development, flexible design, high quality product supply, including associated and sometimes very complex installation, commissioning, putting to work and validations. That is then supported long term by providing a world-class after-sales support in the form of site services, giving customers peace of mind their plant and equipment are in good and safe hands. The thedtic world-class quality-focused manufacturing plants, sales and service centres around the world. We are located in 20 countries and every continent, and serve very diverse industry, including pharmaceutical, green, chemical, mining, plant-based chemistry, just to name a few. And that includes in South Africa, where we have ideally local facility to Isondo, their corporate office in Sandton, at our Boksburg facility in Johannesburg. The thedtic employ around the world 1,100 people, and we currently have 10 personnel in our Boksburg operation. We are very proud to have worked for a long time in South Africa, and we have worked with many world-leading organisations such as Impala, Anglo Platinum, Rheinmetall Denel, Lonmin, etc. Our thedtic office will provide sales and product supply, after sales and site service support. So we're not too far away from Isondo and can give all the support that's needed.
Thank you, Ray. From my side, we did a very thorough job of looking at options for the supply of the reactor equipment for the facility, and it was apparent that the thedtic certainly had not only the skills and capabilities that we required, but also a real engagement with us in order to make sure that we got truly bespoke reactors that met the exact needs that we had. And the equipment that we have here is very flexible. It's very, very high quality. It has the capability to be very, very carefully controlled. And all of these things are extremely important with regards to the very, very sensitive properties of the catalysts that we'll be making. It's fair to say that if you don't make a good catalyst for a fuel cell, then you really have no chance of making something that's going to work well. So this is really a critical piece of the whole equation. And we just thank you to thedtic for their help with this.
Thank you, Kevin. So the final part of this flow is designated for PGM recycling and then producing the subsequent PGM salts and chemicals from that. And again, in keeping with the high-tech nature of the building and of all the other processes, we went out and looked at what is the best and most green processes in the field of PGM recycling as well as refining to the final metal. And we identified IBC out of the US, out of Utah, their technology, the molecular recognition technology. And you see this is a mock-up of the current plant that's being designed for IPM. Can I ask Steve Isett if he's online to join me? I've known Steve for many years from my days at Impala, and I want him to talk a bit through the process.
Yes, thank you, Vinay. My name is Steve Isett. IBC is very proud to be working with Isondo Precious Metals on this project. We specialize in molecular recognition technology. It's the benchmark technology for effective and green processing of PGM-containing materials. Is used worldwide. MRT means quicker and more cost-effective recycling and production of PGM feed into IPM's catalyst and MEA processes. It positions IPM as one of the most modern and foremost operations in the world. We'll now share a short video about MRT, and many thanks, Vinay, for this opportunity. Green chemistry, molecular recognition technology, Superliq products make green energy green. By purifying and recycling the energy metals cleanly and efficiently, take a metal, pull it out, and do that cleanly at a very high efficiency and a very high recovery rate. The superior economics of MRT are based not only on the science of molecular recognition, but on the technology component, the T in MRT. When we talk about economics, we're talking about a technology that can not only be manufactured efficiently, can not only be engineered at a high level and placed into a process flow sheet in an efficient manner, but we're talking about the ability to recover elements at a very high level, 99% plus, versus other recovery rates from other technologies that can linger in the 70s, 80s, low 90 percentiles. This is critical to the economics. It is also critical to have a technology such as MRT that can quickly process material. Every day a material is in process and being reworked. It is costing money, it's costing interest, you're paying the bank. With MRT, we can process materials in hours and days, not in weeks and months. This is extremely critical to economics. When you look at the MRT process and you're able to take out the metal very cleanly and separate it, you don't need all of the rework. It goes through much more quickly. It's a simplified process that's automated. That means superior economics. These systems are much simpler because of the green engineering design that we engineer into them. They're much simpler because of our knowledge of the selectivity. Because when you can selectively take a metal and pull it out of something in one pass, then you've really made a difference. The other point of economics is the technology needs to be green. It needs to be able to do something and not harm the environment. MRT not only helps the environment, but it has proven to be a key green technology. We need to constantly be looking for ways wherein the environmental considerations of the technology are one of the most important things that one takes into account. Not something to just be looked at, but something that is integral to the product. With MRT, the environmental considerations are built into the product. In order for the green revolution to survive and thrive over the next century, molecular recognition technology is absolutely needed. It forms the foundation for this growth.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. We are currently working very, very hard with our team, with Steve's team, to finalize this process. And we also now will be going into a round 2 fundraise to be able to buy the kit and actually install it. We now go into the second floor, which really is a view of the boardroom, which really contains offices, open plan offices for staff, and then 2 crucial labs. This is the R&D lab. Kevin, you want to take us through some of the things happening in this lab?
Yes, certainly. So this is where we're able to do development in terms of the catalyst products that we're making or the MEA structures that we're producing, and to test them, to check their performance, to check their lifetime capability, and make sure that they are able to deliver what the customer requires. So this is really where a lot of the science and development happens in order to make sure that we meet the needs of the customer.
Okay, and then from the R&D lab, the second lab we have is the quality control lab, which we go into now. This QC lab has been set up with all the required equipment to analyze all the various process flows, including the PGM-based process flows, the catalyst process flows, and give us in-house capability to do all these very, very important processes. And that really is a walkthrough of the building. Thank you very much. I think now I want to hand over to Kevin. Isondo, apart from the production part of the business, where we're looking at producing components for the green hydrogen industry, we're also looking at deployment projects, hydrogen refueling stations, the transport of the fuel. And I want Kevin to take us through some of the work that we are doing jointly in this area.
Yes, thank you, Vinay. So I think just to sort of introduce, first of all, one of the key things about the hydrogen economy is that it is a pretty complex thing, and it's apparent, and already from the conversations that we're having with suppliers of technology and equipment, that it requires considerable cooperation and collaboration in the supply chain, in the research and development activities, and in particular, the bit that we haven't seen yet, most importantly, with potential end users. So there's no point us developing this capability if we don't have people willing and keen to use it. So things that we need are this considerable cooperation and collaboration. We need a detailed understanding of the specific situation in South Africa so that we can deploy technologies and take advantage of its national strengths and meet the needs of its people. But one of the things that really is vital is that what we do needs to make sense from an economic perspective as well. If we're going to do demonstrations, they must lead into something that can wash its face financially in the medium term. So we're looking for things where demonstrations lead on to much bigger things rather than ending into dead ends. So all of that is really crucial, and it needs, of course, a vision and a strong motivation to succeed. And as Professor Hirose has described, there's an enormous global opportunity in which South Africa can participate. And the time is right for South Africa to take part and be able to realize the potential value of its resources. But first, we need to do things at home and demonstrate a commitment to the home market. We've seen the investment in the Isondo Precious Metals manufacturing capability. We also need to develop and demonstrate what comes out of that facility and show how it can be used within South Africa. And so that's really what I'm going to take you through now. So if we look at the first slide here, we've got the hydrogen value chain. This is what we're looking to achieve in the medium to long term. So we're looking to have solar and wind providing the bulk of the energy in here. We'll have some remnants of the nuclear side, and there'll be some ongoing biofuels and biomass in certain areas, but fossil fuels largely surpassed. So we're talking now pretty long term, but using electrolysis to produce hydrogen, and that hydrogen can be used across all sorts of different applications. So hydrogen currently today is widely used in chemicals, and the production of hydrogen for chemicals creates a lot of CO2. And so ultimately we want to be using renewable energy to make chemicals. We want to be able to store hydrogen because the renewable electricity will be intermittent and we'll need to have energy stored. And hydrogen provides a very good way of storing very large quantities of hydrogen for long periods of time. And that's a job that nothing else can really do in terms of batteries or other technologies of that type. Hydrogen is best placed to do that long term. Then we need to be able to transport it. We need to be able to compress it and transport it so we can ship it out in tankers to end users. And one of the challenges with this is that if you're trying to transport hydrogen, you have to compress it quite hard. It takes a lot of energy, it's quite expensive, and you still don't achieve a very high mass of hydrogen on a truck. And so the distribution is expensive. So one of the things that we can also do, and this is part of the chemicals piece as well, is we can decarbonize the production of ammonia, and we can use ammonia as a hydrogen carrier and use that to distribute the renewable energy of South Africa by road, rail or ship throughout South Africa, Greater Africa and the world. So an opportunity here to really see the renewables in South Africa on the global stage. In order to use that as a source of hydrogen, we need to crack it back into hydrogen, and that in itself requires some precious metals as a catalyst, and then we can use it in all the developing technologies that are around for the use of hydrogen. So key thing here is that the choice of the appropriate technology is always situation specific. And so as we move forward in this, we need to be selective about how we do it. We need to understand the importance of the resources available, what the end users need. And we need to make sure that the economics make sense. And so this right technology, right place approach is key here. And that means that hydrogen shares this whole new energy ecosystem with other technologies. So for example, batteries. So batteries are good at doing certain things, and we should continue to use them where they make sense for that. Where they can't be used and where they don't make economic sense, then we need to use other technologies. And hydrogen is a good example of that. And I think the final point here is that you can see across the supply chain that the precious metals part is really quite important. And this really underlines the fundamental role that South Africa could potentially play in this new hydrogen economy on a global scale. Next slide, please. We talked, and Professor Hirose has already mentioned the renewables potential of South Africa. This chart shows the cost of hydrogen if you're using renewable energy to produce hydrogen by electrolysis, using a combination of wind and sun to provide that electricity. And the darker red you get, the lower the cost of hydrogen. If you look at the little annotation there, it says Neom. Neom is a city in South Africa. And in Neom, Air Products and some partners have decided that they're going to invest $7 billion to make renewable hydrogen at large scale, convert it into ammonia, and then ship that around the world. So this is the Middle East looking to take its natural resources, as it always has done, put them into methods of transportation and cheaply transport them to end users around the world. Now, if you look at that map, the renewables capability of South Africa is not different to that of Neom. And so in principle, at high level, there's no reason why South Africa couldn't be a great exporter of its own renewable energy, but it needs this energy carrier. And that energy carrier is, on the one hand, hydrogen, which is used to generate power at the other end, at the end user end, but ammonia potentially as a vector for carrying that. Go the next one, please. This gives some detail about the South African renewables. I won't go into detail. One point I will make is that the really good renewables are located towards the west of the country, and quite a bit of the population is located towards the east of the country. So one of the things we need to address in order to make hydrogen cost effective for use in South Africa is to be able to transport it from A to B. So maybe this whole renewable hydrogen into ammonia situation helps us to solve that. The chart at the bottom just shows cost. As I said earlier, cost here is really important, and the economic viability and success of hydrogen depends on it being as low cost as possible and as little more expensive than conventional technologies as possible. And you can see that if for hydrogen to have a parity with diesel and untaxed diesel cost, then we need to be just over $2 a kilogram. And in fact, that much of South Africa could potentially enable that to be achieved. So really is strong potential there. So on to the next, please. Okay, I'll go through this quite quickly. What we're going to do here for the first steps of implementation is to prove that technologies that use hydrogen can be deployed within South Africa. And to do that, we'll take fossil fuel-based hydrogen that's already produced in South Africa. It's already used in chemicals and ammonia production, and we'll use it to power an initial fleet of something like buses. And we're in talks with bus fleet managers in order to get them to do trials of this zero-emission technology. Go to the next one, please. And so then we start to green things up. At the earliest opportunity, we get this electrolysis directly connected into renewables. And now some of the hydrogen that's available within South Africa is green. And we can store that and use it for a greater range of vehicles. And we're picking transport as the first application because transport fuel has the highest added value of fuels that are used for either power or heat. Transport is by far and away higher added value. And so the economics are likely to work best for transport. Next, please. This third phase is really having demonstrated that we can do this in terms of green energy, in terms of the end use technologies. Let's have a rollout and extend this renewables, get investment in converting ammonia production, for example, and much more of the power and heat generation in the country into green hydrogen-based generation, and that's the sort of intermediate phase. And then in the final one, next slide please, we end up in the final situation, which is the slide that I showed you first time, where we've made that full transition. Now, obviously, that's going to take a lot of time, and it's got a lot of detail, a lot of collaboration, a lot of involvement. But what is a good idea to do, I think, is set out this high-level roadmap. But on the other hand, Isondo Precious Metals is going to get into the market here and start to develop these things for real. And it's only by getting on the ground, doing, and learning by doing that we really take this forward. The next one, please. I think Professor Hirose has covered this, but it is apparent, and I know this from my own dealings with bus companies in other countries and truck operators, that batteries will not do the job of large duty transport in all situations. And there are some where it will, and if that makes sense, we should use them. But there are many applications where a hydrogen option is better. And so, we hear a lot of people saying that we can do this all with batteries. The customers are telling me that's not true. It doesn't meet their needs, and they need a different solution that has longer range, can carry more weight, and is faster to recharge. And hydrogen provides that. Next one, please. So this is just a schematic, and I won't go into detail with timing, but one of the first steps we want to do is get some fueling in place. As I said, let's use some existing grey hydrogen to start this off. Let's get some buses running. Let's prove that they can be operated, refilled, shown to end users, the customers, the people who ride the bus. That's happening in other places. They really like them, and then we can make this progression to the green. Introducing the green part. So the first thing I think is to get some actual refueling on the ground, get some vehicles going. Let's start off this journey in practical terms for South Africa.
Kevin, you're very accommodating, and thank you for that presentation and for accommodating us time-wise and giving us some background on the potential for South Africa. But without wasting further time, can I please call on Jacques Kosef to come in? He's the special advisor to the MEC in Gauteng, responsible for economic affairs. Jacques is also the person responsible for accelerating these investment opportunities in Gauteng, and we're very pleased and thankful to have Jacques stepping in for Parks Tower. Can I hand over to you now, Jacques?
Hopefully I'm sufficiently audible, but
yes.
I'm not going to... Cool, marvelous. It's actually very useful that the MEC was delayed, and I can follow Isondo because they've obviously provided a great deal of useful context that I therefore don't have to go through, which is great. So as a start, I should, in full disclosure, I serve the MEC as the special advisor. The MEC also allows me to be partially seconded to the presidency, where I work under Dr. Makopa's office, and I'm one of the leads on the national Green H2 strategy for my son. So this is an area in which I've got a great deal of interest, and it's great to have players like Isondo coming to the party in the way they are. I think firstly, it's always useful to use this graphic that we cribbed from CSIR to remind everyone that there's a wide universe of these hydrogen power fuels that are kind of operating out there as potential market vectors. So from liquid hydrogen itself, where we're anticipating export demand to be a real factor towards the late 2030s or late 2020s, beginning of the 2030s, based on the investors we're all collectively engaging, and all the way down the list, including all the different components that include obviously green ammonia as one of the immediate storage vectors. So we're talking about exactly what Isondo has put on the table. We recognize that Paris Accords have put us in a situation where globally we're moving in a much more positive direction. Chemical storage of energy is a non-negotiable. Being able to move renewable energy around in a stored format is completely non-negotiable, and hydrogen is going to be the biggest thing and possibly the only thing that can do that at scale. So what's worth reflecting on, and this is where I'm going to bring the presidency framing before zooming into the Gauteng approach to this, because Gauteng demonstrates a very specific part of this picture. In the context of the presidency, there are 3 lanes, as we call them, that have been identified for hydrogen commercialization and industrialization. And the first is really the domestic use of green hydrogen and green hydrogen power fuels to either run large-scale embedded generation for specific industrial sites, especially using the 100 megawatt cap, or industrialized baseload use of hydrogen for specific grids. And certainly and in Gauteng, places like Mfuleni and Ekurhuleni that have got long-term industrial requirements and need more reliable electricity and could use basically hydrogen-fueled grids is definitely part of the agenda there, but we'll come to that in a moment. So if lane 1 is domestic utilization to generate electricity, whether it's at grid level, whether it's at large-scale embedded generation level, whether it's kind of via grid wheeling and various other arrangements that can be made. The second area, which is where Isondo and colleagues have obviously given us quite a bit of background, and where the DSI and the various other entities in government that have been involved in H2 have been most involved for the longest time, is the question of green H2 for mobility, and using it particularly in trucks and large buses, as was just described. And certainly there's a role Gauteng will play there, which I'll get into in a moment. The biggest marketplace in terms of rand value, dollar value, scale value, is going to come, as was hinted now, through export. And really being able to produce large volumes of green hydrogen for export markets. There's a fair amount of disagreement between certain figures that are leading the charge here, both policy-wise and investment-wise, where all of this starts. The thing is, all 3 lanes need to develop at once, and the biggest capitalization will go into export, but a lot of the local investment will also be factored under lanes 1 and 2. So when you're talking to the Northern Cape, you're having a bit of a different conversation, where it's large-scale production sites that'll take 30,000 hectares of land, convert them to 15 gigawatts of electricity, convert that to 5 gigawatts of electrolyzer that produces X tons of hydrogen, that goes onto a ship and gets exported to a consolidated aggregator in Europe or Japan. That's a different marketplace. Gauteng, whether or not we can play there is under investigation. There is a potential that the mining land in the West could be used that way, but otherwise our trajectory is a bit different. That in a second. So it's worth looking at the way the national investment strategies are emerging and what role Gauteng plays within this. So that within the country investment strategy, there are basically 4 areas of state action we can look at that meaningfully position green H2. And Gauteng, as I'll wrap up and show you, plays a role in all 4 of these. So firstly, the state can act as a convening party, as is being done through the SA Renewable Energy Master Plan, as Gauteng is going to be doing through our Energy Action Lab. And that's really bringing parties together, reducing market, basically asymmetry of information, connecting funders with projects, etc. Co-investment, special economic zones. You're already hearing about what's going on at Tambo SEZ. That's part of what today is about. But there's also the Vaal SEZ, which is going to be a major green hydrogen node for producing certain components. And the Western Corridor SEZ will also have a green H2 linkage. So the state is positioning itself in Gauteng to invest in the commercial infrastructure required to enter this marketplace. Then there's catalyzation, which is really working on how we can look at rail infrastructure, port infrastructure and associated. We have to be able to move this kind of fuel around the country and out, and certainly out to export. And Gauteng is well positioned to act as a transit node, as well as for anything produced here that goes to export. The new Gauteng Eastern Cape corridor, though it's focused on automotive and large manufacturers, there's already discussion about how linkages to ports such as Gqeberha, where there is a level of specialist development for green hydrogen and green ammonia already underway, could actually be factored in. Then there's the enabling, which is all really about the regulatory piece and how it gets unlocked. A lot of it happens at national level, but we as Gauteng, along with provinces like Northern Cape, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo, have to be part of the pathfinding process. So what is Gauteng doing, and how do we position ourselves in terms of this whole context? Number one, partnering with whoever is game, and there are several names that will be mentioned as soon as the MOAs are signed, that are looking at large-scale embedded generation and behind-the-meter power systems that will go up to the 100 megawatt cap. And that creates a huge amount of opportunity, obviously with the proviso that the initial price point per kilowatt hour could be expensive without the addition of transition funding. But transition funding is the kind of thing that is doing the rounds from sources such as the EU. And there is a possibility that there will be industrial users that are happy to pay slightly more per kilowatt hour in return for stability, predictability, control, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one area where Gauteng is definitely positioning itself to lead. And we believe that we can definitely introduce meaningful utilization of both behind-the-meter systems and grid-tied systems that use hydrogen to generate electricity. Even if it means a phase-in from grey to green, that's also a possibility that we're looking at. Effectively, we're also then looking at how green H2 acts as an energy source for mobility and what public policy levers can be used. That includes our bus subsidy regime. We are the subsidy carrier for public bus systems, as well as through our involvement with the various BRT systems, as well as bus manufacturers. Busmark is one of the declared proposed anchor investors in our Western Corridor SEZ. So if you can produce hydrogen-capable bus fleets, if we can add intervention through the subsidy system to support that, if we can work with our partners and municipalities to introduce into BRT systems, it creates a pathfinding way to do mobility at scale very rapidly. And this then complements the work that's been done on hydrogen valleys, et cetera, by the mining companies that are looking at mobility from an industrial truck fleet perspective. Then integration of green aviation fuel. The Tambo SEZ, where the Isondo are going to be located, is very much connected to Orsia and AXA as partners. There is a huge opportunity to bring in green avgas as a way of basically supporting the flights that will then face lower carbon taxes. By the way, that also applies to the manufacturing side. Remember, one of the ways that we are selling green electricity is the fact that anyone who is manufacturing anything that's going to go to Europe after 2030 is most likely going to face those very nasty carbon border adjustment mechanisms that the EU just highlighted this week. And that means there's work that's been done by the National Business Initiative that's looking at who's exposed, and it's pretty much everybody. Remembering, of course, that European standards often become global standards so that companies can unify the standard that they use. So we are going to have to take our electricity supply for manufacturing green. Hydrogen provides a very powerful way to do that. And both from the point of view of supplying avgas to planes, as well as green hydrogen-based electricity to industry, that's an opportunity that we're planning to exploit. Then we're going to plug in a Green H2 Skills Academy, and possibly as an extension of the Tambo SEZ. That's what's under discussion. And then, as Isondo is doing, but we want to expand it further, we really want to go very, very big on strategic localization. We want to be able to talk about tier one component suppliers in Gauteng. And really do that, and the kind of scale we're talking about to supply the hundreds of thousands and millions of solar panels that are going to be needed across the country, the components, the catalyzers. These are the areas where we want to play. Isondo is a great example of how that play can be pitched. And we want to be able to move forward with basically opening up the promise of the PGM market for the Republic. But we as the country's manufacturing hub can really play a huge role there. Okay, Chris, I'm going to stop there, seeing as I cut into everyone else's time. But I hopefully that gave everyone a sense of why it was so important for Gauteng to kind of stand alongside Isondo and other partners today, looking at how we are treating the Green H2 frontier as a major investment frontier, obviously working with the presidency, working with our colleagues throughout the country. And we see ourselves as working in direct complementarity with provinces such as the Northern Cape, where the focus will be more on export. Thanks a great deal, Chris.
Well, thank you, Jacques. That's tremendously exciting to hear about the commitment we're getting from the Gauteng province up into the presidency. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that this green hydrogen economy is starting to take center stage at the highest level in the country, as well as a number of different government departments who will hopefully make the playing fields very encouraging for investment across, it's about regulatory facilitation, it's about policy facilitation, and ultimately it's about private sector investment. And it's really exciting to have heard from you, Jacques, and I'm very grateful that you've been able to step in. Ladies and gentlemen, we're running somewhat late, but I hope you will agree that this has been absolutely fascinating. I'm now going to call a 5-minute comfort break. So we're going to break a stretch of legs, well deserved. It's been a long haul for 5 minutes, and we're going to reconvene at 3:10 sharp, where we've got some fantastic presentations lined up. One from Sasol, one from Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra from the United States, who's going to have like a fireside chat with me to discuss some of the issues that have been raised. So let's have the comfort break now, and let's be back at 3:10 when I'll see you again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now exactly 10 minutes past 3. We're running somewhat behind, but as I say, I think it's been an absolutely fascinating eye-opener for me, certainly, and I hope for you too. So let's kick off now with the second half of this webinar. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Marius Brandt. Marius is the Executive Vice President of Sasol 2.0 Transformation. He's responsible for the Sasol 2.0 program, the group-wide transformation program positioned to achieve the future Sasol strategy. In addition, Marius is accountable for Sasol's 2050 greenhouse gas emission reduction target setting and roadmap definition. Marius's association with Sasol began as a student, having received a Sasol study bursary. During his career, he has worked at most of Sasol's South African operating facilities. He's been exposed to a broad range of business activities, including roles in plant operations, project management, establishing transactional and site-shared services, managing Sasol's businesses and heading group strategy and other group functions, and leading several group-wide transformation programs. He was appointed to the Group Executive Committee in April 2019, and I think you'll agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that he is eminently qualified to speak to you, and I'm very interested to hear about Sasol's role in the green hydrogen economy. We've heard previously from the Sasol CEO in a previous webinar that we conducted, and now we're really talking about action taking place on the ground. So Marius, over to you, and we look forward to hearing what you're going to say.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon to the online audience. Special thanks for the sponsors for raising this webinar. It's so critical in this phase that we're in. But also today, I think a special congratulations to Isondo on achieving this groundbreaking milestone. It's really a special occasion, and well done to you and the team. If I turn just to set a bit of the scene, I think we all agree that hydrogen can play a significant role globally in decarbonizing hard-to-abate industries, and to be an energy source in mobility and industry, as well as a source of hydrogen for the petrochemical industry. And this is especially where we play. Globally, countries are rallying to respond to the climate imperative, and we are seeing significant investment into hydrogen as an energy source, as hydrogen is seen to play a notable role in the transition to sustainable energy and the re-industrialization of countries. Blue and green hydrogen supply is becoming cost competitive as the cost of renewable energy reduces, scaling up increases, and technology advances are commercialized. Alignment between supply, demand, and financing through this transition is very important. And in order to ensure that this transition is effective, but also as fast as possible. We are seeing end-to-end partnership accelerating technology advancements and also in applications. So I think partnershiping is going to be very critical for the success of us, exploring the opportunities that there's also for South Africa. In response to the Paris Agreement's call for countries to set out long-term climate strategies, South Africa has set ambitious decarbonization goals, and green hydrogen presents a unique opportunity for the South African economy to re-industrialize, create sustainable growth, and thus enable also through a just transition. Now, Sasol in turn is well positioned to play a leading role in the development of the South African hydrogen economy through its market knowledge, through its technology, capabilities, and assets. Now, we all agree that there's significant intervention is required for us to achieve this below 2-degree pathway, scenario that the Paris Agreement has set out for us. I think there's a myriad of opportunities for us to respond to that. And in fact, I think if you look at hydrogen as a solution and contribute to decarbonize, the opportunities in transport and in industry, but also for Sasol using green hydrogen as a molecule in their operations to produce petrochemical products is very critical. Given the outstanding solar and wind endowment South Africa possesses, green hydrogen has the potential to unlock significant value and also sustainably. Now, green hydrogen is a technology that has really advanced over time, and we are seeing significant investment in this regard. The interest in green hydrogen opportunity is not contained only to those countries endowed with great natural resources, as you can see from the slide. And more than $80 billion of mature investments in hydrogen projects have been achieved. And I think also as shared by Prof. Richo a bit earlier. But there's also more than 300 billion projects recently announced in this period that also could still mature even further. These hydrogen investment announcements are further fueled by the provision of tax incentives, government subsidies, and regulatory mandates, to mention a few, as countries globally positioned to address the climate change challenge. Now, recently, just in this week, we have seen the EU announcements in this regard, and also again, which will fuel further development as we watch this space. Now, in order for hydrogen to really excel as a source of energy in South Africa, a couple of things has to take place. We certainly see that hydrogen has the potential to reshape the SA energy landscape. And a couple of things I would like to highlight, I think, are really important for us. The SA hydrogen strategy is important, ideally nationally coordinated to accelerate the transition. We are also foreseeing that a favorable regulatory environment with consistency and speed to action to activate the market and position South Africa as an earlier mover is very important. Infrastructure development enabled by private partnerships and healthy collaboration amongst players to capture local and export opportunities is going to be very important for us. Affordable financing, local and international partnerships, and focused R&D and innovation programs, as we've seen with Isondo, that will assist the South African economy to really accelerate and to gain that momentum both on the supply and demand side. Lastly, but most importantly, the upskilling of our people and the creation of new job opportunities will ensure that we are also creating necessary sustainable employment opportunities. And this is so needed in South Africa, as we've also seen this week. We as Sasol is keen to play a leading role in the South African hydrogen journey with our vested interest in the country, as well as the industries we participate in. Now, if you look at some of the opportunities Sasol is really focusing on, I want to start on this slide and just highlighting, some of the key ones. On the left-hand side, the opportunity for Sasol exists to repurpose some of its existing operations. In Sasolburg, the opportunity is there to have green hydrogen production within a short period of time. And our CEO in a recent announcement also alluded to that. Now, that can create for us the opportunity to have green hydrogen available, which can be routed either into a hydrogen usage or into green ammonia, which the opportunity also exists on that site. More important is this middle block that I would like to refer to, and that's really creating this whole ecosystem that is so required for us as a country to have both the supply side and also the market side in place. Isondo plays very, very dear into this process. Now, for us, green hydrogen production is very critical, and the whole electrolysis process is key to that. In that, the Isondo products also features quite significantly. Distribution is going to be a very important topic. And I think it was earlier alluded by Kevin that, potentially green hydrogen production could be very close to where low-cost renewable energy is available. But that transport from that to the major usage areas in South Africa is going to require us to think that through very carefully. Is a pipe grid, perhaps the solution, or, would we be transporting that through rail or road? But these options are there, and I think to be further explored for us as a country. And obviously the market is very critical. I think to have a takeoff where our products can go into is going to be very critical. I think we've also seen the recent announcement with Toyota South Africa to explore opportunities for a hydrogen corridor along the N3 is going to be very critical. And to get that going, to really set that offtake is a very important, challenge that we are positioned ourselves to do. And I think we will pursue that, with vigor. We have also recently announced our partnership with the Gauteng provincial government and the IDC in order to help and support this development of an ecosystem that really can allow both the production side, but also the offtake side to be successful. Now, as we've seen today, one of the components in here is certainly the development of fuel cell technology, but there will be other players required and other technologies and production capacity required for us to be successful in this journey. If I turn my attention just in terms of the opportunity side, I think it's also very critical to see that there's a great export opportunity for South Africa. We are extremely well endowed with solar and wind. Our opportunity really is there. How can we convert that into export opportunities? And Sasol is very keen to be a player in that regard. Now, certainly, I think for all of you that are close to these opportunities that can emerge, the offtakes are quite extensive. I mean, from maritime transport, and we've recently also again see the EU now starting to be very focused on the emissions in that industry. This opportunity really exists, and it's a very positive opportunity to pursue further. Fertilizers, again, green fertilizers is a very important, production opportunity that can be created. South Africa is on net an importer of fertilizers. Again, I think the opportunity exists for us to even expand and see how we can actually position some of this into the world with our good location that we have in the continent. So I think a very important one for us to consider. Now, our production opportunities are there in place, which is, I think, to be further explored. Hydrogen transport opportunities, certainly, I think this is an area that requires some more focus from our side. There's great opportunities now existing in the world and technology supporting that. We can actually transport the ammonia, which is a great medium to transport, and then have a localized, reconversion into hydrogen. So I think we are seeing these advancements in technology, and it's for us really exciting how this actually can explore and support the industry also in South Africa. And I think something which in South Africa is in high demand is explosives due to our very extensive mining activities. Green explosives would also be possible to be produced once you have a green hydrogen source or green ammonia source for that matter. Again, I think we are very well positioned, and it's really up to us how quickly we can get our national strategy going in order to get this ecosystem built up to further explore. In terms of Sasol specifically, we obviously also have some existing past technologies, over 70 years of operations in this industry. And we have really expanded the Fischer-Tropsch process. In very layman's term, we take hydrocarbon, hydrogen and carbon as molecules, as building blocks, and we convert that eventually into liquid fuels and chemicals. Now, this technology is agnostic to the source of hydrogen and carbon. Now, currently, we obviously use water and coal in our Secunda operations. Over the last 20 years, we've added natural gas as a source. But those two could be replaced by green hydrogen and a direct air capture carbon, or for that matter also biomass as a source of carbon. Really, this positions the technology very well globally to explore opportunities in what is referred to as the PTX environment. Specifically, I think the attractive ones being the sustainable aviation fuels as a priority, but you can also see the application in sustainable diesel or green diesel, as it referred to, and sustainable chemicals as an opportunity. The recent announcements in this week from the EU really now start to fuel the advancement of some of these market opportunities. And as an industry, we also obviously are very focused and see what we can do, not only for global opportunities, but also for our own, Oliver Tambo hub, which could become a regional opportunity in supplying a sustainable aviation fuel. I want to close out and perhaps give some time to the other speakers also. I think we are looking at a realization that the world has to move to greener energy sources. And we certainly believe that hydrogen is one of those sources. In addition to electricity as a pure offtake, but that hydrogen is well positioned to play a notable role in that transition. South Africa is really well set up for really utilizing the opportunities that come along for local demand, local industry, mobility, but also for the petrochemical industries, but then specifically also for the export opportunities that do exist. Hydrogen, green ammonia, and for us to feed perhaps some of those very high demand continent demands. In Northwest Europe, for example, Japan, are in serious need for energy sources of this nature. Sasol, we believe, can play a significant role, and as a established entity in South Africa, we are keen to take a leading role with government and other players and really see how we can accelerate this industry for ourselves. We are exploring various opportunities to repurpose our assets for that purpose. But I think also for us to work with other players in developing this very critical ecosystem that we believe is important to be established. We are a big off-taker of hydrogen. We use in an extent of 2.2 million tons of hydrogen per annum. So I think we really, all of that unfortunately gray, but we do have the opportunity then also in time to start to replace some of that green hydrogen with that grey hydrogen with green hydrogen. I think a great opportunity as a baseload also for the country. I want to conclude by just again reiterating that we have great technologies, and I think we will also be working with partners to see how we can explore that to the better for South Africa, but also to decarbonize specific hard-to-abate industries globally. I will conclude there and stand. Thanks, Chris, for the opportunity today.
As we all know, Sasol has a huge carbon footprint. It's under a lot of pressure to decarbonize, and it's interesting to see how they are rising to this challenge as they move forward. A lot of pressure, but a lot of incentive too, to be an early player in the green chemicals market, the green hydrogen, green ammonia, and all the derivatives, green aviation fuel, green methanol. It's an incredible opportunity with great prospects and future potential for jobs and to really transform the South African economy and re-industrialise. So great to have you here, Marius. Great to hear about Sasol's ambitions to become part of the green economy going forward in South Africa. So it's now my pleasure to introduce you to another player on the global stage of green hydrogen, and that is Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra. If I may introduce you, Sanjeev holds a PhD in chemical engineering and an MBA. He worked as a postdoctoral fellow at the renowned Lawrence Berkeley national laboratories on electrochemical storage systems. Sanjeev holds 7 patents and has authored 40 or more publications in various fields of energy storage technology and materials. He was the very first director of the Clean Energy Investor Center at the U.S. Department of Energy, established in 2015 as part of the White House and Obama administration's Clean Energy Investment Initiative to advance private investment in energy technologies. He founded and developed Urja Protonics, a direct methanol fuel cell technology, to become a successful global clean tech company. He's also the founder and managing partner of the Plus Initiative, an early-stage venture capital fund formed as part of the Associated Universities Incorporated, focusing on energy, mobility, sustainable cities, and smart mining. Sanjeev has also worked at a leading venture capital firm, Kleiner Perkins Caufield and Byers, as an energy advisor for the fund on potential investments in clean energy and advanced materials. He's currently the founder and CEO of Sparks, a California-based clean tech energy storage company. So I think you can see a person who's had a background in research, in government, in policy, and then also in venture capital startups. Really a critical role, and we're seeing today a startup in the form of Isondo, companies facing enormous challenges to get going, but it's happening. And really, it's a pleasure to have you and welcome, Sanjeev. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, Chris. I'm here.
Nice to see you all the way from the US. And good to have you online, and wonderful that this technology can bring together people from around the world so effortlessly. Sanjeev, we're going to just have a little chat about this subject. It's been quite an eye-opener for me to hear what is happening around the world, what's happening in South Africa, and it's wonderful to have you on the line. You know, you've got an absolutely impressive CV. You've worked across this fuel cell and battery sector. You've been in the White House initiative in alternative energy. My question to you, and let's just talk about this together. How does your various experience help you explain this current global energy trajectory? Where is the world going, and what can your experience tell us about this?
Chris, I think the world is going to very interesting places. I think the next generation that we have here, I don't know what symbol has been allotted to the next generation, Gen Y, Gen Z, or something beyond Z. But these folks are bringing a lot of perspective that I actually, when I was at that age, when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I did not have that perspective. So I think the world, definitely we are handing it off to a very competent and a very capable generation. So that question we can put to rest, that yes, the world is going to very interesting places. In terms of, my experience, there have been quite a few learnings, quite a few, I would say, as I like to say it, quite a few falls, and quite a few folks have helped me rise when I fell. So in terms of the learnings, working, as you said, as an entrepreneur or a scientist or as someone in the public sector, the first learning that actually solidified when I was working in Washington, D.C. was that essentially there are 4 pillars of innovation. And without these pillars working together, innovation definitely seemed to be strangled. And these 4 pillars are, the first one are basically the R&D institutions, the labs, whether these are universities or here in the United States, we call them federally funded R&D institutions, FFRDCs. And I'm a product of one of them from Lawrence Berkeley Labs. So they definitely have a key role to play in this whole innovation. Needless to say, they, all of us know that a lot of the innovation starts at these institutions, but also the role that they have is of generating IP and passing over the IP, the intellectual property, to the private sector, who can then scale it up and make it into a product, into a solution. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is startups. I call them the connective tissue. Startups have a key role. Excuse me. Startups have a key role to play as an entity that can scale up the technology, that can actually bring life to the technology. So the role of the startup as a connective tissue between early TRL, early technology readiness level, or early maturity level, to getting it to a point where it can be handed off to the market, I think that's a very critical role.
Yeah. Indeed.
Then comes the third pillar. The third pillar are the big sisters, the big brothers. I was listening to the talk prior to mine from the gentleman from Sasol, a fascinating talk that he gave. And, companies like Sasol, companies like Siemens, companies like the auto OEMs, they definitely have a role to play where they take up what the startup has scaled up and take it into the market, or become a co-developer and develop it further, or a co-manufacturer and set up manufacturing along with the startup. Basically, they help in creating the infrastructure, the ecosystem, to make innovation go from early maturity to being a ready product, ready process, ready solution for the market. And last but not the least is the public sector. We look at public sector as being someone who can provide us grants, or somebody who can provide legislative framework or deliver legislative framework based on which technology can be commercialized. But they also have a role beyond that. I think, I talked about the labs. The labs are typically owned and operated by the government, some government agency. So I'm a big fan, Chris, of using the labs as a service model. The government agencies have plunked in billions of dollars into equipment that are there at these labs. And I think the private sector would be best served, I should say, using these equipment for whatever purpose they can achieve or they can serve. So I think lab as a service model basically comes from the public, from the public sector. And I think the labs, or rather the public sector, also has a key role in helping scaling up the technology. I gave a talk yesterday to folks from Chile. This was a webinar arranged by the U.S. Department of State and National Science Foundation and MIT, where I talked about how my suggestion to the current administration, to the Biden administration, is to set up an office of scale-up, an office that would help not only technology transition, but also in scaling it up. So I think, that's a role that the public sector can play very, very, very favorably. So those, the learning about how these four pillars work together has been a learning. The second has not been so much a learning, it's been an experience that there are challenges that the startups face. And I was able to take those challenges when I was in Washington, D.C., and putting together policy or putting together framework for this policy. These challenges helped me in framing those, legislations or policies, etc. So that was the second part of my, work experience, which helped me see how clean energy, in whatever form are we talking, hydrogen, solar, wind, generator storage, whatever it might be. These are very essential. The last but not the least is public-private partnerships. I talked about the four pillars. If the four pillars don't work together in some form of public-private partnerships, that's a recipe for disaster. So we need to ensure that we have the right kind of public-private partnerships that will help technology see the light at the end of the tunnel. That'll help startups not fall into those valleys of death, actually convert the valleys of death into mountains of opportunity. So I think these three, I would say, have been my key learnings over the years, whether as a scientist or an entrepreneur, as an investor, or working in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, it's really interesting, the role of the public sector. In South Africa, we have this organization, public sector organization, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. And you see, it's not just industrial research, it's industrialization. It's converting research into commercial, production scale operations. And so I'm seeing the CSIR as an important public sector role player to work together with the private sector in commercialization of these technologies. And it's really interesting for me to know that the CSIR are on the board, or a member of the CSIR on the board of directors of Isondo. So there is this close collaboration of industrialization, of commercialization of from an idea into a reality. So I think those comments that you've made are really interesting, and I'm fascinated that your background also in the venture capital world, in really promoting these startups, and startups like Isondo in South Africa and United States and around the world. So if I can sort of move on now and ask you, how do you see the US government's role evolving in helping promote the hydrogen sector, especially in the activities in South Africa? Where are the linkages that can be exploited between the US and South Africa within the hydrogen space? We've seen the new Biden administration come in, and really a complete change in approach to the green economy, and the very exciting developments now taking place in the hydrogen economy in the US, linking up with the European, the British, and other countries around the world in a common cause. So how do you see this US government's role evolving, and in particular with South Africa?
Chris, I think there are three important facets of how this cross-border alliance could work. Look, I think the Biden administration has done a great job of hiring folks who have seen this movie before. And, not only have seen this movie before, but they have seen the sequel of this movie before. So bringing those folks into the White House, into the Department of State, Department of Energy, I think it's a great move by the Biden administration, because, they bring learnings, just as I was talking about. They bring battle wounds, which are very essential so that you do not repeat any mistakes. So if we look at how a cross-border alliance could work between United States and South Africa, as I said earlier, three important facets of that. One is technology partnerships. Okay, so I think our national labs, our universities have a fair amount of technology, and so do you guys. University of in the past, when I was running Urja, did a lot of work with the University of Cape Town. So I think having some sort of cross-border technology partnership, IP licensing, all of that, those are very essential when we look at how one can work together. And taking that to the next level, essentially, would be in terms of scale up. I think the time is very, very, very ripe. I put a lot of varies before that. It is extremely ripe right now, Chris, for us to look at scale up. That's a lesson that hydrogen and fuel cells should take from batteries. This is the time to go in for the kill. This is the time for scale up. So if we are looking at scale up, essentially there needs to be these, we need to look at beyond R&D. We need to look at the technologies that are ready, off the shelf, get them into the marketplace and scale them up, put them into production, and basically go with it. So having maybe demonstration projects leading to commercialization, or some sort of market transformation projects are very essential. So those two are very key from the standpoint of technology. The third one is manufacturing. Sorry,
carry on.
The second one,
carry on.
Yeah, the second one is manufacturing. I think if we're talking about scale up, we need to look at the manufacturing ecosystem. We need to look at the entire value chain. If the two nations work together in creating a fully integrated value chain, when it comes to fuel cells, when it comes to green hydrogen, all the way from mining to processing to making electrodes to making MEAs to making stacks to making packs, and in terms of the green hydrogen infrastructure, I think there is a great scope for companies from United States to work with their counterparts in South Africa, and also small companies, large companies, and even the governments to work together. So I think the second one is partnerships on setting up this fully integrated value chain between US and South Africa. Very, very, very essential if we need to look at doing something that would result in a hydrogen economy of some sorts over the next 2, 3, 4 years. The last one is financial. People come to me and say, all this is fine. All this knowledge that you're sharing with us is fine, but show me the money. So in terms of the money, I think in terms of the financial, I think, again, you have multilaterals like IFC, you have the African Development Bank. Those are, one source of funding of projects. And I think the South African government needs to possibly try to entice venture capital or private equity from the Western world, definitely from the United States, and make it very attractive for them by, offering them. I'm not a financial guy in that sense of the word, that I will have some suggestions, but they should make it very attractive for financial institutions to look at either project financing or providing some sort of I would say a safe harbor for them, so that they can look at either equity mechanism or a debt mechanism of scale-up projects. So I think the combination of these three, essentially technology partnership, manufacturing / supply chain partnership, and partnership on the financial front, I think that is going to be the way the two governments, the two nations can work together.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, Sanjeev, I just want to mention that on the 29th of this month, July, that's in 2 weeks' time, we're doing a webinar, the 4th Green Hydrogen webinar in South Africa, which has been done in partnership with the U.S. government, with the U.S. Embassy in South Africa, and with USAID. And we're really going to have an exciting talk in 2 weeks' time about regional activities. That means beyond just South Africa, but also our neighboring countries, including Namibia and Botswana, who've got some very interesting ambitions in the green hydrogen. We're not alone. There's competition out there, but there's also cooperation. And one thing I've learned about the things that you've said, and you highlighted it in your response now, is this need for an entire ecosystem, an integrated value chain. It seems clear to me that no single country can do this alone. No single company can do this alone. It's all about partnering around the world, partnering in the region, partnering in South Africa, government, private sector, financial institutions, all part of this very exciting integrated ecosystem that is necessary. It's not just about having a production facility. It's about having markets. It's about having supply chains. It's about delivery and distribution, and all of these things have to work together. And no single country or company can do it alone. And this opens the door to partnering with the United States, with the UK, with Europe, with Japan, Korea, and around the world, and a fantastic opportunity. So, in conclusion, what advice can you give South Africa in positioning for and leveraging on its natural endowments? We talk about coal being our natural endowment, and sometimes it's best to leave it where it belongs in the ground. But we also have massive natural endowments of wind and solar PV. And how do we leverage these natural endowments to take advantage? Oh, by the way, not to forget our natural endowments of platinum group metals.
Yes.
So, the combination of these endowments, of wind, solar, and platinum group metals, how do we leverage that to take advantage of the green hydrogen economy? noting the strategic pathway that a company like Isondo is executing on?
I think, Vinay and Saqib are doing a wonderful job at Isondo. And I sort of alluded to this a couple of minutes ago about, taking an example from the world of batteries. Look, I used to be a fuel cell guy. Probably still am a fuel cell guy. I see my PhD thesis lying there, screaming the word PEM fuel cells. So, you cannot take fuel cells away from a person. Yes, I am in batteries now, but there are a lot of, I would say, lessons from the world of batteries. The first one, actually, when we talk about ecosystem is, let's look at the example of the automotive OEMs who have done or are continuing to essentially dominate the world of electric vehicles, or what they call BEVs, battery electric vehicles. Volkswagen, Tesla, to name a couple. I think Ford is not too far behind. But the key thing that they did was look at, again, from the ecosystem approach. They brought in somebody to help them make batteries. They brought in somebody to help them with creating the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure. They brought in somebody to help them with battery recycling. Again, going back to the earlier point, Chris, not one entity can do that. And Tesla started this, 10 years ago, where essentially they were they're not an automotive company. They're not even, people say they are a software company. No, they're not even a software company. They're a very creative supply chain and system integrator. They brought in Panasonic, they brought in other companies that could help them with those three, the charging, the batteries, and the recycling, and they put all of this together. So it's a combination of supply chain and creative system integration. I think if you look at fuel cells, I've asked myself this question a lot of times before. Why cannot some very creative entrepreneur, right, who has a big heart, she or he goes into the Isondo office and says to Vinay, you will be my stack supplier. Okay, forget MEAs, forget electrodes, you will be my stack supplier. I give you this contract for 1 million stacks to provide to me. This is the time frame. He goes to Vinay's cousin down the road and says, you will be my balance of plant supplier, my BOP supplier. Goes to Vinay's second or third cousin and says, you can be the, electrolysers, the electrolyzer supplier. Basically finds these partners, goes to work, puts these together. That's creative supply chain, creative system integration. Finds the financial, there are financial providers, there are private equity firms, there are some hedge funds, there are a lot of these, sort of growth PE firms that are looking at these kind of big projects. Start with the market. I don't like this debate between the battery guys and the solar and the fuel cell guys about, hey, we are going to win in the light duty passenger vehicles, or you're going to win in XYZ. No, I think the fuel cell guys, they have a lot of markets at their disposal. Marine market, aviation market, locomotives, the long-range trucks. Choose one or two markets, create this infrastructure, this ecosystem of stack, system, whatever it is. Put this together, and you will see the results. Basically, I'll use that word again, go in for the kill. Okay? That is what needs to be done right now. And I think South Africa, with all of that you mentioned, the platinum, with solar, wind, all of that at your disposal, I think you have the best shot at making this happen. And the government, obviously, needs to support it. Look, what did we do when the Teslas of the world were starting off, right? We provided something called ITC, or investment tax credit, in terms of tax rebate or tax credit for the buyers. So that opened up the market. Secondly, we provided either direct loans. When I say we, the Department of Energy, for example, the first one was Department of Treasury. The second one was Department of Energy. They provided either direct loans or loan guarantees. I think $500 million was provided to Tesla, and about $1 billion or so was provided to Nissan. So the government can play a role of either providing soft loans or soft loan guarantees. So that would be helping on the financial side. and, as I said earlier, entice the private sector from the United States to come in and make it very attractive for them so that essentially they can provide the capital for these kind of projects. I think it all boils down to, Chris, what I started saying earlier, public-private partnership. Somebody like Isondo and other partners working with the government of South Africa and taking a page out of the book of the United States, essentially what the Obama administration did in the year 2009 till 2014, 2015. I think there is a lot of lessons to be learned where I think that would help hydrogen and fuel cell scale up.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev. That's absolutely fascinating. It's sort of takeaway messages that I've heard. Well, the first one is, Vinay, I hope you've got lots of cousins out there, because you're going to need cousins to start all kinds of activities in this supply chain, as Sanjeev has indicated. Second thing I've sort of taken out from this is it's about timing, and the time is now. If you started off, Vinay, about in 2013, 14, was it? Maybe the time wasn't right then. The whole hydrogen economy hadn't really captured the imagination of the world, but it has now. And the opportunities are massive, and they are happening now as we speak. And so, as Sanjeev has pointed out so clearly, it's time to go in for the kill now. And we cannot do this alone. We've got to partner. We've got to look, for all kinds of people to help in this ecosystem, because it's not good enough just to make one component. There has to be a whole ecosystem, and we need to connect up with the world. The world is at our doorstep, and the opportunities seem to be there, and the time is right. So thank you very much, Sanjeev. We could carry on talking for another hour about this subject, and I would love to, but we have to move on now towards the closure. And it's a great privilege to have had you, Sanjeev, and it's also my great pleasure to introduce to you the person who's going to close this webinar before we go into a Q&A, and that is Dr. Khotso Mokhele. Khotso obtained his PhD in microbiology from the University of California, Davis, and is a postdoctoral fellow of the Johns Hopkins University, as well as the University of Pennsylvania. He has served as chairperson of the Implats group of companies, as well as Tiger Brands, ArcelorMittal, Adcock Ingram. He served as chancellor of the University of the Free State and is currently chairman of AECI, as well as the lead independent director of MTN, a non-executive director of the Hans Merensky Holdings, president of Hans Merensky Foundation, and acting chairman of the Advisory Council of the African Open Science Platform. Dr. Mokhele was a special advisor to two ministers of science and technology, that is the Honorable Derek Hanekom and Honorable Naledi Pandor, as well as being president of the National Research Foundation, NRF. And of course, Khotso has also accepted an invitation to join the governance board of Isondo Precious Metals. So they have got a very esteemed person on their board, chairman of the board, and it's a privilege to hear from you, Khotso, and may I call on you to make your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm mindful of how tight your time is, so I'm going to make it very easy for you and use the time very effectively. Chris, I hope that everybody who's participated in this webinar today feels as inspired as I do, because truly these have been inspiring submissions. Watching and listening to these presentations from distinguished panel of experts from South Africa, both government and private sector, and internationally, I'm struck by the common and emergent theme of this event, which is the opportunity that presents itself to South Africa Incorporated. South Africa as a country is singularly blessed with natural resources that other countries can only dream of having. Our PGM resources in particular make us the envy of the rest of the world. As a country, however, we have felt woefully short of translating these natural resource endowments into thriving, value-adding industries that beneficiate our metals into downstream components. The reasons for this are sometimes hard to understand, as we all have the capabilities to achieve that translation. As a nation, we now stand at the precipice of one of the biggest opportunities of all, and that is the green hydrogen opportunity. This potentially huge new sector that is in its formative stages is tailor-made for South Africa to help accelerate our economic development, and large parts of the technological evolution of the green hydrogen industry utilizes our cherished PGM assets. We therefore have a platinum-coated opportunity, if you don't mind the pun, to build a new beneficiation industry in South Africa on the back of this emerging global opportunity that can help re-industrialize our economy. You've said, Chris, the time is now. Let us not lose this opportunity as well. The team at Isondo Precious Metals have been illuminating the pathway in this regard. I've known Vinay from the time when I was chairman of the board of directors at Implats, and he served on the group executive committee. Vinay has always been a strong advocate of beneficiating our metals in the country, as well as the development of the fuel cell industry as a new demand source for PGMs. I've watched Vinay and his team have developed the vision of PGM component manufacturing industry for fuel cell and electrolyzer from concept starting in 2016 into reality in 2019. Let's not misunderstand each other. This has been an extremely tough and lonely path to tread. But I've watched their tenacity. I've watched their passion. There's no historical precedent or blueprint, and South Africa does not have the same supportive culture for greenfields industry development that the developed world enjoys. And Sanjeev has just made that absolutely clear for us. And securing funding for an industry that was still way off on the horizon was almost impossible locally. And the private-public partnership that Sanjeev and others have spoken about came into play here. That's where the DTIC stepped in. I must take my hat off to the teams at both the DTIC and the Department of Science and Innovation, who are actively helping develop the green hydrogen industry in South Africa and supporting these ventures through the formative stages when nobody else would. The two departments are providing the platforms to help develop fledgling industries into those ready to fly. What we have seen before us today is a successful example of these initiatives by these two departments. This, however, is merely the end of the beginning. The next stage is getting into operation, starting with the construction of the state-of-the-art facility designed to house the house-tech production processes required to meet the standards required by the fuel cell and electrolyzer industries. You have seen via the presentations today the caliber of the developmental work that has gone into the developmental stages of this project. The best-in-class equipment and process design that permeates every step of this end-to-end manufacturing process helps position South Africa Incorporated with the capability to manufacture components for the green hydrogen industry. IPM has developed its capability into transforming into PGM technology companies along the same lines as established group leaders like Johnson Matthey, BASF, and Umicore, which serve as the benchmark of the industry. Beyond the creation of a new beneficiation industry, Isondo, as Vinay already indicated, has been recruiting and training young graduate interns by exposing them to some of the world-class skills in this space. This training and upskilling program is part of what the country requires, and I applaud Isondo executive team for this initiative. Having this capability established in South Africa as the first execution of its type is really exciting and a proud day for us all. However, the move into the next stage of full operation still requires significant level of support. Over the past few years, I've been helping provide the guidance to this dynamic entrepreneurial team leading the execution of this beneficiation strategy. We need industry players to also get more closely involved in supporting this venture. I was enthused to hear our colleague from Sasol speak about the role that Sasol potentially can play in this regard. This is a team game to help benefit South Africa Incorporated and requires more than just the government support. Industry has a strong and vested interest in supporting companies develop into the precious metals and green hydrogen space in South Africa. The significant benefits that accrue to the country at large, including employment creation and skills training, will help sustain our country into the future. It's a no-brainer, and I hope to see colleagues from the metals industry becoming generous supporters of visionary initiatives of this time. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Khotso, for those inspiring words, and to hear this coming from the chairman of AECI, from a former chairman of the Implats Group, from the chairman of the board of directors of Isondo Precious Metals. It really gives heart. And yes, it's the message I've taken from what you've said is no different, I think, to what earlier presenters have said. I can only but admire the tenacity, the sheer tenacity of people like Vinay, like Sakib, who have been through times that must have surely been very difficult, from times when perhaps the market was not ready, through times of COVID, through times of of uncertainty, even to this day, when we face the unrest that we've seen over the last few days. It requires great tenacity for a startup in this field. It's high technology. There's a lot of risks, but they've held out. And it's been, I'm sure, a long and lonely road, as you pointed out. And as you've also pointed out, this is just the beginning. They've now broken ground at the Special Economic Zone at OR Tambo Airport, and now things are happening on the ground. Wonderful to see, and thank you very much, Khotso, for your words, and the best of luck to you, and my best wishes for this project going forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the official part of this webinar, and I'm very mindful of the time. We should be ending right now. But there's just one or two questions that I've seen come up on the Q&A. We can't nearly cover them all, but there's some that just have to be answered. And so I'm going to go into this Q&A and put a couple of questions to the presenters. If I may, I am going to cut it short, unfortunately. I wish we could go on much longer, but time doesn't permit. But several of the questions, I think, are addressed to Vinay. Vinay, we've heard about that this has been a long time in coming. We've heard, about what a long and difficult path it's been. But can you perhaps give us some indication now of the timelines you foresee? And I don't want to hold you to a specific timeline, because there are so many uncertainties in the world that we face at the moment. But a lot of the questions that I've seen have been about the timelines to get into the manufacturing process, the finishing of your factory, also the timelines in the recycling activities. But broadly speaking, can you give us a sort of a picture of where this is going?
Thank you, Chris. In terms of timelines, we expect the building will be ready by mid next year. So we should be able to take occupation by July, August at the latest next year. We then start commissioning the equipment that we bought that's already in country, some that's on the water, and some that's still going to be ordered. At the same time, we're going to start the fundraise program, importantly, for the PGM recycling and refining kit. That's going to be critical. We hope that this fundraising is more successful, or not more successful, but quicker than the other ones. I mean, we should have been in production really in 2018. If you were a United States-based company with much more access to markets, we could have done it much faster. But hopefully now with the emerging interest in hydrogen, we can now execute much more quicker with a stronger financial base. I think really what's lacking is to accelerate this is a strong base load partner.
Thanks for that, and yeah, thanks for keeping the answer short and sweet, because we are short of time. I'd like to just now pose a question to Khotso, if I may, and that is, Khotso, from your experience as a leader in many large JSE listed companies, first question I want to ask is, when is Isondo listing on the JSE, if ever? Or, but okay.
Chris, you'll be the first to know, but not as an insider.
Okay. We're all insiders here. This is just between us and our 500 participants at the moment. But so let's just proceed with that question and say, from your experience, in JSE listed entities, as well as advisors to ministers, etc., in government, how should South African-based corporates, especially this PGM sector, and government support companies, how should we be looking to beneficiate metals further in the green hydrogen industry, like Isondo is trying to do? Surely there's more to this, and there are further players that could come into the sector to really to create this ecosystem that has been talked about by Sanjeev.
Chris, I'll be just as brief as Vinay was as well. South Africa at times is a bit of a paradox. We are endowed with the mineral resources that we have. We enjoy a very sophisticated economy underpinned by a solid banking and financial services system and human capital platform produced by highly regarded higher education system. Again, we had Sanjeev talk about University of Cape Town. We can talk about Wits and Stellenbosch and University of Pretoria, University of the Free State, and so forth. On the other hand, we actually behave like many African countries that are resource-based, which speak of the curse of a resource economies. We have not beneficiated the minerals that are mined in this country. The sense in which, if we are truthful as South Africans, South Africa behaves as if we have a bit of an inferiority complex. And maybe that we're still suffering from a bit of an overhang from the apartheid era, when we were an isolated country in the world where others did not want to trade and play with us. The sooner we shared the sense that the world can be led by us, apart from talking about Nelson Mandela leaving the world when it comes to the issues around morality. But when it comes to industry and economy and innovation, we're a bit passive as an economy. And one of the mistakes that have been made around beneficiation, Chris, and I'm sure you'd know this very well, the challenge for beneficiation has gone to the mining companies. Now, those who know how mining works, the way mining works is some geologists tell them where to drill a hole in the ground. They know how to drill a hole in the ground and bring the metal up from below ground. To ask them to beneficiate, the mentality of beneficiation is a manufacturing mentality. It's not a mining mentality. The mining companies don't know how to do that. And one of the areas in this country that we've lagged in is manufacturing. I think what the Isondo initiative represents is a bold initiative to launch us into an innovation future and let it be one of those first startups that will be transformative, that will show and convince Africa that it is all possible, it is all within our reach. We have the resources that are minerals, and we have human capital resources as well to deploy in this regard. We talk a good game in this country. We develop some of the best policies in the world. This is time to execute and time to implement.
Thank you. That was that cut to the very heart of the theme of this webinar, is the execution strategy. We're at that stage now where we beyond research and development. We now have to scale up and meet this growing demand that we're seeing around the world. Look, there's been another series of questions on the Q&A, which perhaps I could put to Marius Brunt, if I may, if you're still there, Marius. I see your name is still there. And that's a question of, it gets to the heart of South Africa. Jobs, employment. What is the impact on GDP? What is, how do we ensure equity, employment? We know that the youth, there's massive unemployment in the youth. We've seen what Isondo is doing on a small scale, but a very important scale in terms of skills development. How do we make this an inclusive, a participatory sector that can address the question of jobs, employment, GDP, participation, skills, etc.? And I'm really talking to, do you see this green economy that we've been talking about as being able to create the kind of jobs that are necessary for South Africa to address these deep problems in our society where we have youth unemployment hitting 60-70%, which is a powder keg?
Yeah, indeed. I think, if you start to think about just going from grey to green, with all the mining involvement and the huge amount of, labor involved in mining, your first impression is really, can we really replace that grouping of employed people in the green economy? But it's only when you start to really unpack this ecosystem and you say, if I look at end-to-end opportunities, really from manufacturing, and we have a proud manufacturing history, perhaps a bit neglected in the recent period, but we have to do that as part of this effort to say, let's go sit down with government and with labor and say, we need to work together and say, what type of manufacturing can we reinstitute in South Africa? Perhaps with the new technologies required, but we do have that capability. I'm 100% sure we can do that. Now, if we can, through that process, resist, the easy thing to import. That's the easy thing. Let's import and let's go and construct these solar panels and, do the installations here. And just like that, there goes a lot of job opportunities out there. So the studies have shown that the green economy actually creates more work than the grey economy. I mean, that's a global assessments that have been done. And I think if you take that, but it's not going to be an easy effort, Chris. I think it's going to take us to really sit together, business, government, and labor, and say, okay, how are we going to do this? And let's look end to end in that ecosystem. If we take the example of vehicle manufacturing in South Africa, what they've done to create jobs, I think we are at debt to say we owe it to our country, and we need to do this as a collective. Only by doing and working together we can achieve that. But if we're going to go the quick routes, as we've done perhaps in the recent past, and we start to just import again, and we don't exploit every opportunity that we have, we're going to miss it out. And I think it's really going to be up to all the players that I think we've heard earlier today on the focus on startups and all of that. Really, how do we fuel them so that they can turn the jobs internally in South Africa? And I think that's going to be the challenge for us. We certainly believe that. Our CEO has been tasked, amongst others, to look at localization opportunities, and we will be starting to work with government and labor to see how do we actually make that happen, Chris. So I think it's there, but we need to go and work on it. It's not going to come for free.
Yeah, execution. We've got to start executing these plans and policies and turn them into reality. Look, I think we're now at the last question. And if I may direct this at Katsu Hiroshi-san, Professor, I want to put a tricky question to you and tell you that Elon Musk, this former South African, who's now, running Tesla and a few other things as well, has called fuel cells, he's called them fool cells, not fuel. And yet, you and the company that you worked for, Toyota, are the world's biggest proponents of fuel, not fuel cells for future mobility. How do you answer this claim from Elon Musk? And what is your view on the makeup of the future vehicle fleet? Now, I know you have answered that to some extent in your talk, but I'm just putting out this challenge from this entrepreneur in America to see what is the answer to this.
Yeah, in this sense, we are accustomed to this kind of the talk, because when I first presented the hybrid in 1997 at the Vienna Motor Symposium about my first hybrid car, and then I got some word from the Europe's biggest company that hybrid is stupid. Will never make such kind of the vehicle. That is the word I received from the big giant, but they are now announcing to be in whole battery electric vehicle, and previously they built a lot of plug-in hybrid. So this is the reality. So we don't mind that because of the number of the vehicle, like a Toyota is already selling a 2 million electrified vehicle last year. That company called the electric car company soon, but they sell only 230,000 cars of electric vehicle. And also Elon Musk sold a quite similar number. So, but Toyota sold 2 million electrified vehicles every year, and they are going to sell more. That includes fuel cell and hybrid and everything. So to achieve the carbon neutrality, number and the acceptance for the customer is much more bigger than those kind of the. So I respect Elon Musk. They have a quite good future vision and very I think that very encourage, or can say challenge to the future, and we are doing the quite future. So it's a good challenge. So maybe only historian can judge what is our argument. I believe that will be the both. Yeah. So this kind of argument is foolish. That's the historian will probably say in 50 years later, 100 years later. That's my answer.
Very interesting. The people who call fuel cells fool cells are foolish. Anyway, I thank you for that answer, and it's been a lot of fun engaging with you and all the other presenters. But time is up. We are over time, and time is up. So I'm going to call an end to the Q&A session at this point, and just thank firstly the Minister, Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Honourable Majola. Sorry that you couldn't make it. I hope you recover quickly and fully soon. And also may I thank Tammy Klaassen for stepping in and delivering that speech on behalf of the Minister. Also, I'd like to thank MEC Parks Tau, and most particularly his special advisor, Jacques Kosef, for stepping in, a person of great stature who operates in the Gauteng area as well as in the presidency. And we know that green hydrogen is taking center stage in the presidency as we develop a national hydrogen strategy and roadmap. And it's good to have people like Jacques Kosef, as part of that process, and for his time today. I want to thank our esteemed presenters. Really, an incredible lineup of presenters from South Africa, internationally, from Japan, from the USA, from the UK. In Germany, it's really a privilege to be able to bring these people together, and to the people at at Isondo, Vinay and Sakib, and Khotso, it's remarkable what you've done, and I'm sure the road of an entrepreneur, of a startup in South Africa in this high-tech world is incredibly difficult, and I'm sure you've faced these difficulties on the long road ahead. I just can only wish you well going forward in this challenge that you've set yourself, and it's wonderful to see ground being broken there at the OR Tambo Special Economic Zone. It's great to see the really detailed planning that has gone into this, and I wish you well in this venture going forward. So to all our presenters, and lastly, most thanks to the audience today. We've had a great audience, great questions. Sorry we haven't been able to handle them all, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm filled with enthusiasm and excitement as to what the future holds in this field, and congratulations to Isondo in bringing this all together today. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and from me, farewell and good night, and travel safely.